in session. Just to remind you all that this meeting is being recorded both visually and audio. Are there any public comments on any issue or concern that is not on today's agenda? Anybody online?
Nope. No one
Okay,
online.
hearing none, we'll move on. We have the minutes for the last meeting on April 17th. Does anyone have any comments, edits, corrections, or comments? Do I have a motion to accept them?
Motion to accept minutes?
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Chairman says aye, the minutes are official. Okay, 44 Arkansas ACO funds release.
Yeah, this is back in the old talks of sewer going out to Nantucket days, and this was a separation failure. And they signed the administrative consent order with the board, and that's expired. And this came up when we were doing our whole kind of sweep of Nantucket and 5-year inspections. So we need to release the funds, the deposit that they made back then, to begin installing a new system.
Any comments, questions from the board?
Oh, jeez. Do I look like Charles Schwab over here?
Could you just get closer to your microphone so it gets recorded?
Oh, I'm sorry. I just wanted to know if there's any interest that goes along with that money that's been sitting there that we have to pay.
Yeah, good point. Good point.
I would have to check in with that.
Okay.
Yeah, but good question.
Just a question.
Okay. Do we have a motion regarding the release of the funds?
Motion to release the funds.
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor of releasing the funds for 44 Arkansas Avenue? Say aye.
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 Chairman says aye. So carried unanimously. 3 Millbrook Road was a continuation from last meeting. We had some questions about a well, whether it was functional or not functional. Can we get an update, please?
Yes, for the record, Don Bracken, Bracken Engineering. We believe that it is functional. If you recall, it was shown on the last as-built plan for that property. We did send a certified letter to the neighbor on May 7th to confirm the fact that they're still using that well. We sent them a copy of the plan and highlighted the well on their plan. They never picked up the certification, and we haven't heard anything back from them, but we're pretty confident that is the well that they're currently using. Like I said, just based on that plan, and just to refresh your memory, we're proposing a 70-foot setback to their well, and currently there's a 65-foot setback to the existing septic system that's already there. So I don't think there's much more we can do with the neighbors at this point.
Comments from staff?
No, I think the only question here is, I mean, for starters, sorry, I'll back up a little bit. If this was a failed system, I guess that's how I kind of look at some of these scenarios. In my opinion, this would be maximum feasible compliance. This would be the best scenario. I think the determination for this is the number of bedrooms on the property, whether it's 2 or 3. All the records that we have on file point to 2 bedrooms. So I know there was a lot of building work that went on in the late 70s or early 70s even.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure where the records are of all that, but the only records we have show 2 bedrooms.
The other record you may recall, John, of note, is there was a septic system inspection report on file in 1995 that had it as 3 bedrooms. Right now, the assessors have it listed at 5 bedrooms. There was discussion on the small cottage, if you recall, was originally approved as a studio with a sink only, but in that building right now, it's finished, it's a small cottage, there's no kitchen in it. You enter it and there's a couch, and they do have a bed tucked in there on that first floor, but the second floor on that is clearly a bedroom. So at the last meeting, there was discussion what to do with that. It was a permitted structure, but, you know, the owner would like to keep that as one bedroom, continue to have it connected to the septic system, and reduce the main house down to 2 bedrooms, having a total of 3 on the site. And again, I agree with John, you know, the actual application, the original application was only for 2, but somehow this was given certificates of occupancy by the building department as late as 1995 for the structures that were there.
Questions, comments from the board?
Yeah, so the parcel is 17,500 something?
Correct.
Okay, and in terms of this has wetlands on it, and in theory, those aren't calculated into septic.
No, in this situation, I think the wetlands actually on the property are minimal because it's a intermittent stream that's about 5 or 6 feet wide. So we didn't break out the calculation of the wetland area, but if I had to guess, there's probably about 3,000 square feet.
Which would
Probably
be,
not more than that.
right, but
on
that
the
would be,
property,
like 14,000 functional feet.
roughly. Well, again, that's a conversation that's been ongoing, but there hasn't been.
Well, we
any
did find that there is a
decision.
regulation about that.
Yeah,
So, you know, so that we're down to 14, we'll say 15,000 even, so that's 3 bedrooms on 15,000 square feet.
I mean, I would
Functional.
still disagree with that because the wetland area, especially in this particular case, it would still comply as lot area under Title V. The only wetland areas that wouldn't count as lot area for nitrogen loading calculations are land underwater, those type of wetlands.
Okay.
Any other comments? Meredith?
I mean, it sounds like the cottage is 2 bedrooms, and if this was like being a newly built property, it would be 2 bedrooms total, right, for the whole lot?
So if this was a vacant lot right now and they were doing new construction, they could get 2 bedrooms with an IA system.
So my other question is this in the wetland protection zone? Because I'm looking at a map of the island and I just can't, it looks like might be near there, and I feel like we get so many, and we have more today, applications for these variances to basically max out their lot with an AI system, and we're maybe not doing the island and our sole source aquifer the best that we can do, and we've seen what happens when things get contaminated. So I just wonder, is it in that the map I have does not show as closely, so I just don't know if it's in there.
Yeah, if you look at the plan, you know, we had the wetlands, you know, flagged and identified. We haven't filed with the Conservation Commission yet, but we do have to file with the Conservation Commission after this. You know, they have a more recent policy that we go to any other boards that require approval prior to going to them. So I think especially in this case is definitely appropriate. So if you look at where the existing septic system is today, the soil absorption system, and where the proposed one is, we're making it slightly better than what's there already. As you know, we're putting in the IA, but we're also putting in a drip dispersal system, which has better treatment than a standard soil absorption system that you usually see. So we're actually increasing the setbacks to the existing wetland that's there, along with increasing the setback to the well to the south. I think this is definitely the best design that we could come up with on this property, in maximum treatment, you know.
But that's allowing 330 gallons of wastewater versus what they would have had, which is 220 gallons of wastewater. So it's still more wastewater even though it might be better a little bit better environmentally, it's still more wastewater going into the ground than would be if we just stuck to like, right?
No, I would disagree with that only because it has been used as a 5-bedroom house up until now. And, with no treatment, they are gonna have to change the interior of the house to remove the other 2 bedrooms. So that's gonna be a reduction in occupants, technically. So I mean, what you're saying is if you're comparing what was originally approved in the 70s to today's standards, then you're right. We are asking, for one more bedroom than what was originally approved. But what we're saying and what we stated in the letter is that it has been on record since 1995 via that inspection report on file that it's 3 bedrooms. So somehow that got accepted, by the town. In the 1995 occupancy permits were issued, even though the work was done in the 70s. So I don't think that was any coincidence.
Okay.
Is there a deed restriction for the 3-bedroom?
There's no deed restriction, but we will do one, obviously, as part of this.
I mean, it's
As a
just,
condition.
so we don't have the same stuff in the future.
Yeah,
How many
we-
Oh,
bedrooms?
yeah, absolutely.
We may ask that, talk to the board. Anybody, someone else's? Oh,
Hi, Sarah Alger, I represent the current owner, who does want to bring it back as much as she can to maximum feasible compliance to 3 bedrooms. I just wanted to mention that when this property was built, the studio, which you now count as bedrooms, studios didn't count as bedrooms at the time. So she's being kind of penalized by the change in interpretation and regulations, and I totally get Ms. Leffrey's point, but I think to bring it back to 3 bedrooms, do the changes in the interior, do a deed restriction, move it as far away as we can from the well that popped up, and do the IA system is really the most we can do. Sewer is so far away, and we're not even in the district, so
right.
difficult.
Any other comments from the board?
I thought the cottage, the studio has 2 floors and 2 bedrooms, correct?
It's
Which-
got one.
Technically, right now, based on the floor plan, it has one, because where you enter is like a living room type space, and they have a bed in there. Being honest, I pointed out, there is a bed in there with a couch next to it. But technically, you wouldn't normally see that type of room used for sleeping. It would be more like a living room.
So there'd be 1 bedroom there and then 2 bedrooms in the house?
And 2 bedrooms in the main house, correct?
So it's 3 bedrooms, but with the IA system it's been our policy.
Correct, yeah.
I just, sorry to interrupt.
Go ahead.
It's not, has come to my attention that it doesn't necessarily, we're not setting precedent when we approve these as our policy. It actually, that's not how the law in Massachusetts for us is written. So each one is a different one. It's not like, oh, well, we've been approving them, because I do think these keep coming, and it's just allowing everyone to maximize, and we only have so much land, and a lot of these are in the wellhead protection zone. So I do think we really need to think about, like, yes, I understand that that the thought is this improves for the environment, but it's then causing there to be more wastewater into the ground than there would be if it was only 2 bedrooms.
It is an improvement in the environment. We've been discussing this for the last couple of meetings. So we have a lot of creeps on the island. We have bedroom creep, zoning creep, ocean creep. I think we need, yes, we take each one individually. We've generally granted it if it was an improvement in the environment. Do we want more bedrooms? Not necessarily. Do we want more people? Not necessarily. But we have to have a firm research policy before we start going in that direction, in my view. The truly environmental health issue for the island is we increase bedrooms. That's my opinion. So do we have a motion for this variance?
I'll make the motion
And what will your motion be?
to approve the variance as requested.
Do you want to put a deed restriction on it?
I think that's a good idea.
So your motion would be you would approve the variance with the caveat that there'd be a 3-bedroom deed restriction.
Correct.
Do I hear a second?
Second?
I hear a second.
I'm sorry, excuse me, Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
Would we be able to put in, we'll do a walkthrough of the building as well when the bedrooms are removed?
Yes.
If the board would entertain that, that would be my suggestion.
Yeah.
Is that a favorable amendment to your
That's a good idea.
motion?
Yes.
Chair, is that a
Yeah,
favorable?
and yes.
It'll
So
also-
I second the deed restriction with the walkthrough.
With a walkthrough? Okay.
Yes.
All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed?
No.
Chairman says aye. Variance is approved 4-1
Thank you.
with the deed restriction and a walkthrough by the staff.
Thank you.
We have to stop that. We have to stop that. It's just,
Codfish Park,
that's the only reason they do it.
septic setback.
We don't have to approve all.
Who's presenting this one?
Yes. For the record, Don Bracken, representing the applicant. This property, just under 5,000 square foot lot, has an existing house and an existing cottage on it. It's located across from the beach, across from the coastal dune. That's just on the opposite side of Codfish Park Road. It's also at the corner of Beach Street. If you look at the plan, you can see we've highlighted in green where the limit of the coastal dune is. Basically comes over the hills and hits the edge of the road, and that's the limit. What the owner would like to do is construct an addition on the cottage that's there. And in order to do that, we need to replace the septic system. The existing septic system is a 1,000-gallon tank and leaching pit. So we're gonna replace it with a new Title V system, 1,500-gallon tank and soil absorption system. We're looking for 2 variances. First, the easiest one, we're asking for 17.5-foot separation distance between the soil absorption system and the crawl space for the main house. 20 feet is the minimum. I will note in this case that the top of the soil absorption system will still be below the floor of the crawl space in the building. So there's no way that the effluent going into the soil absorption system will have any impacts on the foundation. That I think is the main reason for the 20-foot separation. We also are asking for that in order to be able to keep it 10 feet off of the street line along Codfish Park Road. There is a water main in that area off between the edge of the road and the street line. The other variance that we're asking for is a setback to the coastal dune. So your regulations have a 100-foot setback, and Title V has a 50-foot setback. So we're asking under both regulations to be just over 30 feet away from the coastal dune. And we're probably several hundred feet from the ocean itself. Again, it's going to be no closer to the coastal dune than the existing leaching pit that's already there. All the resource areas, I think, to be concerned with, this is probably the least as far as septic system pollution is concerned. It's a resource area that's not connected to the groundwater or vegetated wetland or anything like that. We think, it's an improvement over what's there. We'll get much better groundwater separation than the leaching pit that's there right now. With that, I'd be happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Comments from staff?
Yeah, I have no concerns. Sometimes I think we have to look at these as if, you know, if this was if this system failed right now, it's hard to tell, but up in this corner right up here is where the leach pit is. So if that was to fail, this is the upgrade that we'd be looking for to replace a failed system. It's just the fact that they're proposing new construction. By our definitions, new construction is addition of habitable space, but it's not it's Title V wise, it's not new construction because they're not adding any additional design flow to the system. So the design flow is remaining the same. This is, like I said, the upgrade we'd be looking for. It's on town water. The whole area is serviced by town water. So personally, I'd just like to see the water line up at the northern part or the upper part of this plan relocated, if it can be, a little bit to try and get some more separation from the leach field to that water line.
Questions from the board?
Yeah, maybe it's not really a septic question, it's maybe not even our question. There's just an awful lot of hard space. I mean, between walkways and building and, there's just not a lot of pervious ground. And, I'm not sure if that makes a difference or not. It's just that there isn't much. And I know the lot, it's very small. I know the property. But just there's walkways, there's gravel paths, there's just all these paths and stuff that reduce the water flow into the ground.
I probably should have pointed out, you would think it's in a flood zone, but it's not in the flood zone. And would obviously be expecting to put a 3-bedroom deed restriction on the property as well.
Any comments, questions?
John, could you restate what you did a minute ago about it's bigger, but it's not really bigger? I mean, in other words, that's what you'd have to do if the system failed. You'd have to.
Right, yeah. So the design flow is not changing. I believe it's 3 bedrooms now, and it's getting replaced with a 3-bedroom system. So the design flow is not changing at all. It's just the fact they're adding habitable space by putting that little addition or whatever it is on the concrete slab on grade. So locally, by our definition, that's new construction and would trigger up, as in this case, an upgrade of the system to come into compliance with, the maximum feasible compliance. So again, if this was a failed system, this is the system we'd be looking at as well. So there's no,
So if it were a failed system with no increased construction at all, it would get this slightly larger system. Is that what I'm hearing you say?
no, everything would remain the same. It's,
So the reason for the slightly larger system is because they want to do some construction?
well, the system's going to be the same in terms of it's going to be 330 gallons is what the design flow is of the building right now with the leach pit. With this proposed design, it's going to be 330 gallons. So
Okay,
it
okay.
remains all the same.
see.
It gets a little tricky with our definition locally of new construction versus Title V's definition, which includes addition of design flow. So this is just our mechanism of bringing properties up into, current standards.
And what's the addition for? I mean, it's at 247 square feet.
Yeah, it's a living space. I don't know if it's kitchen or living room.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, we wouldn't be here if we weren't proposing the addition, because the system is functioning, it's working. So as John said, this is the way of
That's the
bringing
trigger.
everything into compliance.
Okay. Any further questions? Do I have a motion regarding the variance for 16 codfish? Quiet board today.
Yeah. Well, we're, we're just seeing all the variances and stuff, and, but, this does make sense, and this is improving the system without necessarily increasing capacity. So I'll make a motion to accept with the three-bedroom deed, whatever, I think it's three-bedroom?
Three-bedroom.
Three-bedroom deed restriction.
Yes. Do I hear a second? No one second this.
I'll second.
Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? I only heard one aye, so we do that again? All in favor of this variance, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Hey,
No?
what
I'm,
you guys doing?
I'm just thinking, sorry, I'm still
Okay,
looking
well,
at the,
Well, wait.
sorry, I just struggle with like almost doubling the size of the existing cottage. I,
I'll say, I'm gonna say aye, because
The ex-
there's no increase in the,
this existing one is 354 square feet, and they're increasing it to increasing an additional 247. So, what, 100,
Environment health system,
right?
you're not the planning
Yeah,
board.
well, see, that's it, we're not, on a bunch of this, I'm wanting to vote the way the HDC or something should, but Malcolm's right, it's not. It's a
Not
health-
us.
So as long as it has a 3-bedroom septic, and that is what we're sticking to, that,
Yes, it's-
then that's,
All right, so, and the chairman votes aye. Okay,
Here we go.
we got through that. Listen, I know this is, well,
I have an interesting question that
Yes.
came up when Don was speaking before. And this is a sort of a scientific question that I don't feel capable. But we talk about the single source aquifer, we talk about this, and we talk about that, the stress on it and all that. But many of the properties that we assess and think about are used a very small part of the year. They're not being used 12 months, they're not having sewage dumped into them 12 months out of the year. My question is, does that make a difference?
would, John comment on that?
Well, in reality, yes, Title V doesn't, what's the word I'm looking for? Differentiate
No, I'm
between
not
that
talking
though,
about
but
the rule,
yeah,
I'm
right.
talking about the science.
I would need to, I think you'd need to find out a lot of baseline information first on that and kind of go from there.
And reality is, many of the houses could be 12 months, I mean, that they're not,
they're
that
not.
they're, but
And
they're,
they're
yeah,
not
but their build, but their design could be.
But they're not gonna be,
Well,
I mean,
that's,
they're not.
these variances, adding bedrooms, yes, it's adding, in some ways, these are better environmental systems, but they are adding bedrooms that stress the environment. So at some point, I think if you had an intern really do, some numbers on that, just not this kind of qualitative sense, but a real quantitative sense of it. Adding a bedroom, how many have been added in the last 2 or 3 years? What does that mean for the total stress on the environment?
Being used 8-10 weeks out of a year.
Because if then I would feel very comfortable about saying you can't have a bedroom because it's not good for the environment, because I have some facts behind me, not just my sense. Of course it's not good. So,
but I guess I feel like those houses that are not being used all year are being used to the maximum of their capacity a lot of times for those 8 to 10, and once the aquifer is contaminated, which it might be since we know that there's PFAS in wells, but I don't think that we want contamination from anything else, and I do think we really have to think about where this the wellhead protection zone, and like making sure that we're not putting more stress, I guess, in that area of the island.
I don't disagree with you,
I have a map of it if anyone wants to see it.
Yeah, I think the idea of doing some research on this, because there really is, I think, a difference between a fragile environment that is used 12 months out of the year and a fragile environment where it's only used a small part of the year. And we could probably find that out.
well,
Mr. Chair, if I could
Yes,
jump in.
go ahead, sir.
So I think what you're talking about is a statistical model. So we have to be some inputs, we'd have to make some assumptions around, obviously, we can't determine how long each house is
No.
is occupied throughout the year. So we'd have to make some assumptions. We do have an intern this summer, not an engineering intern, not a statistician intern either. So, but she could certainly contribute to looking to see what we can do around that, and maybe getting some guidance from Andrew on the environmental side.
yeah, I mean, just some, what's the feasibility of looking at some of these numbers and realizing it's gonna be there's gonna be wide standard deviations around whatever we do.
Yes, so exactly. So the more data, the better. It's going to increase your confidence intervals. But there are going to be some inputs in there that you're going to have to make some assumptions about. That's what modeling is about. So, but we could do it. It's just, we'd have to think through an analysis plan and see what we could come up with.
Would this be something that the WPI students could do, to submit this as a project for them in the fall? They come in with teams of students that are
Yeah,
really
so
smart.
I don't know much about the WPI students. That the student that we're getting this summer is a college student from Vassar. And so strong interest in public health, but not necessarily a big background in data, at least not yet. So, and I think that's what would be
Yeah, with WPI
needed.
We can
students.
talk about that
Yeah.
offline, because we're kind of wandering from the agenda.
We don't want to deal
I
with this.
justify this discussion because we had so many of these variances.
Exactly.
So I think we're okay by discussing it, but a real discussion really needs to be
Yeah.
agended
Yeah, an agenda item, yes.
for proper open meeting laws.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, there are two people online with their hands up. I don't know if you want to recognize them.
Or which issue?
I really, if they're going to discuss the philosophy of more bedrooms and the discussion we had, it's really not, we really didn't have it on the agenda per se, so we really can't discuss it. If that's what they're going to speak about.
I don't know if they're
I guess we
going
should
to.
find out.
Let's see, are they going to, we've already voted, so we have to move on to the agenda.
Okay,
And I think Rocky and I will discuss and maybe get back to you next month about a plan. And then we can discuss it properly with an agenda item. Because we're really kind of wandering from the rules.
No, I think it's a good idea, because we get hung up on this
Yeah.
every single time.
Yeah, so let's do it right on the agenda. Okay, here again, 72 Arkansas Avenue. This is from last month too. We were going to ask to have the system inspected because it was
Yeah, I'm going to
a
recuse
failed
myself.
system, but it was failed like 5 years ago.
I'm going to recuse myself again.
Go ahead.
It was more than 5 years ago.
John, can you just remind me a little bit, in 2 sentences, the history?
yeah, this had
and
a,
what we asked?
right, this has a failed Title V from 2014 or so. And at the last meeting, the board made a motion to have another Title V inspection done for this meeting to see what that revealed. So this is kind of where we're at right now. I'm not sure if the applicant is here.
My name is Dave Cocker, 72 Arkansas Avenue. I've contracted George Hughes to do the inspection, and I'm waiting for him to get to it. That's where we are now.
Okay, so we don't have any, when, sir, do you anticipate that inspection?
It's up to George Hughes. I can't, these guys are so busy now with septics that they're kind of, taking them as they come in, as the requests come in. It took me a while to find somebody who would answer my calls.
We'll continue this, we'll continue this for next month.
Yep.
That'd be good. I
And
hope it'll be done by then.
I have someone with their hand up. I'm not sure if it's. Okay, Drew, you're able to talk?
Yeah, hi. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay, yeah, sorry about that. I've actually had my hand raised for about 20 minutes. I was going to ask some questions about 16 codfish since I'm the abutting neighbor.
Of which
Codfish.
we've already,
Yeah, but I don't think we saw it.
You guys didn't see my hand. It was up the entire time. So,
well, we addressed 16 codfish.
well, okay. So you're not taking comments or questions?
Well, you can comment, but we really can't change because we've already voted and moved on.
Wow. Okay. Okay. I mean, I would ask that you guys maybe moderate your hand raising for people who are involved in these things to be able to participate and have just a little bit more attention to that, because now you've already voted and I don't have an opportunity to discuss the item given that it's next door to me and it is actually in a flooded area, and there are things that were said that just aren't accurate. But it sounds like you're not going to change the vote that you already have on record, correct?
It's on record, the sense of the committee or the commission or the board was that it did not really change any environmental flow.
Well, I know the design flow didn't change, but they're adding a bathroom and another bedroom, and they're covering up a material amount of that lot. They also own the lot behind it, so there is the potential to move the septic system from being so close to the dunes further back and to either share the system or at least be part of the other system, or they could put it under the shed. But either way, and this is not your purview, they're building into the 5-foot setback along my property line as well. So, I mean, this is kind of a suboptimal play. I mean, they just keep adding stuff around the neighborhood into their house and to their lot. And there's almost zero non-hardscape in this area, which one of the board members mentioned.
Right. I apologize for not seeing it, but we did address it and move on. Your concerns about the size of the building, et cetera, that's really planning board issues.
No, my issue is the extra bathroom, but I'll step back. I just wanted to make it clear that they are actually going to have more people living in the space, because that little house right now is not an area where anybody can live. So they're absolutely designing to add room so they could bring more people to be there all at once. So to the chairwoman or sorry, the board member there who was speaking, that absolutely is the indication of what they want to do.
We did put a deed restriction on rooms?
You know,
Did you guys vote for a deed restriction on this one? Because I would ask for a 1-bedroom deed restriction on the cottage for sure.
We did a 3-bedroom for the total property. So both structures would be limited to 3 bedrooms total.
Okay. Okay.
So that was part of the motion that was made in terms of upgrading the system.
Yep.
We did restrict the number of bedrooms.
Yeah, I mean, I guess the one thing I would just say is it's odd to me that they would increase the size of the system when they don't need to, which was, I think one of the other board members had asked that question, if they didn't intend to have more flow, irrespective of the design.
They do have a deed restriction on bedrooms. Yes?
I
Thank
can,
you.
I can hear you. I can hear you. All right. Well, I appreciate you guys getting to the questions. So thank you.
Yes.
Thank you.
Again, our apologies, sir.
We have another hand up.
Yes, what's the other hand?
Okay. Okay, Christie?
Hi, thank you. I just was trying to listen in, and it's really hard to hear the board members, and I would just ask that you speak directly into the mic so those of us attending remotely can hear you. Thank you.
Yeah, actually, I'm having trouble hearing you.
Want to do a sound check?
Yeah, I think if you speak in the mic, it's
Yeah.
fine, yeah.
Okay.
And Malcolm's was off for a little bit, yeah. And your microphone was off for a little bit,
Okay.
yeah, so.
We'll get our microphones closer to us. All right. All right, where were we?
Kendrick Street.
4 Kendrick Street. Septic property line setback. Okay, who's speaking for anyone?
I don't, yeah, I'm not, let me see if anyone's online. Yeah, I don't have anyone online. so.
Can you explain this to us, John?
Yeah, sorry, I'm trying to drag this over here. I don't know where it went. Okay, so this is somewhat similar to Codfish Park. This is for Kendrick Street and Tom Nevers. The applicant is, or the property owner is proposed to build a office building, so they're adding habitable space there. So we said that you need to upgrade your system based on the new construction of the office building that they're proposing here, I think above a garage. In order to do so, they needed to relocate the leach field on the property, which is a pit currently right now. They will be installing an IA. They need, in order to do this, they had to move the well that currently exists on the property. As you can see, there's lots of wells that are in the area. This is a tough area in regard to setbacks with property wells. And so in order to make this happen, they need to move the leach trenches to the eastern part of the lot, which is going to be, I think it's about 5 feet from the property lines. And Title V setback is 10 feet. So as part of local upgrade approval, they need to notify the abutters and give them a chance to speak at the meeting. Otherwise, it's not a variance, it's a local upgrade approval. And again, this is kind of a scenario of if this was a failed system, I would be looking at this and saying, yeah, this is the best case scenario. They've relocated the well and tried to put it in the best case place that they can environmentally. But they are adding the garage with the office as well as the pool and the cabana building to the south, so.
Jen, I'm confused. I mean, they're not adding a bedroom? Why are they upgrading the system?
By our local definition, it's new construction. The addition of habitable space.
Well, I would really like to hear from the applicant. This is,
Can we do a continuance since there's no one really to defend our questions and we can't get answers?
You said it was an office building when it began?
The proposals, yeah, it was a habitable space, it was an office. So this is similar to the Codfish Park where they're adding the addition onto the property of habitable space. There's no proposed increase in design flow for this. It's new construction by our definition, so, which requires the upgrade of the system.
Wouldn't Cabana have a bathroom?
I haven't seen the floor plan.
Yeah, I mean,
plans
there's
for-
no line to, not showing any piping or anything, so I'm not,
It seems like there's a big space where the pool is that they probably could have put stuff, but then the pool wouldn't be able to go there.
yeah.
I suggest
I think we need a presenter.
I think we, if a motion, we
Continue and,
continue this to next week, please.
yeah, because I'm not,
Next month,
yeah, there's too many questions.
yeah.
Yeah.
It doesn't,
There's a motion made. It's a motion to continue
Second.
this to next month.
Second the motion to continue.
all in favor to continue?
All right.
Aye.
This just doesn't. All right, 38 Lovers Lane, we have 3 nitrogen loading credits. Lot 1, 2, and 3.
Good evening, Paul Santos with Nantucket Surveyors, but I'm not here for that application, but with the permission of the board, Dan Malloy is representing those applications, and with the board's permission, allowed me to ask if I could have 337 and 339 Nantucket Road heard at this position in the meeting. The reason being is the planning board has rescheduled hearings from Monday night to tonight at 5, and I'm due to be at the planning board, so Dan has offered to.
So you would like 18 and 19 for us to do it now?
Please, if the board would allow it and take them out of order.
If I hear no objection, we will do that. Any objections from the board? No. Okay, so we're going on to 337 and 339 Nantucket Road. Request for nitrogen loading.
And if I could, again, Paul Santos with Nantucket Surveyors, on behalf of the property owner, John Leclerc and Ruth Hodges, and I'd like to hand out something to the board with the chair's permission, if I could. Thank you. The exhibit that you have, I think, will make this, I'll try to make this as brief and as easy as possible to explain the situation. So the current applicant, Ruth Hodges and John Leclerc, own 3 particular properties in Nantucket. They own 6 Ames Avenue, they own 339 Nantucket Road, and they own 337 Nantucket Road. 6 Ames Avenue is a currently code-compliant septic system that is grandfathered and contains 3 bedrooms. It is not an IA system. It is a passing system, and there's been no trigger on that property that's required them to upgrade to an IA at this point. There being no new construction, there hasn't been a sale. So we have a 3-bedroom code-compliant system. The original well has been abandoned, and the property is now connected to town water. That property, as it exists, is approximately 15,000 square feet. So you have 15,000 square feet on 3 bedrooms on a 15,000 square foot lot, which is essentially grandfathered. 339 Nantucket Road is a 34,147 square foot property, which currently contains a 4-bedroom septic system, and that already has historically had an IA system. So that lot contains an innovative alternatively nitrogen removal technology. 337 is a 26,825 square foot lot, which contains a 5-bedroom system, which is an innovative alternative technology. That system was upgraded fairly recently due to a property sale to the applicant. So that is a newer, innovative alternative technology system. So the request before you tonight is that the Leclercs have owned 6 Ames Avenue for some time. It is a property that is currently adjacent to that eroding shoreline in Nantucket and will at some point eventually need to be moved. And the intent would be to move 6 Ames Avenue to the property at 339 Nantucket Road. Now, in doing that, there is room to do that, but the system that is on 339 currently, albeit an IA or nitrogen removing technology, is only a 4-bedroom system. The existing home at 339 is a former small, what they used to call it the Red Barn. It was the Moran family that owned that property for years. It's only a 2-bedroom. That is a 2-bedroom structure. And the intent would be to move 6 to 339. Number 6, as I said, was a 3-bedroom system, so that would put 5 bedrooms on 339 property. Now, currently, that 34,147 square feet, when you look at the nitrogen loading or the bedroom count calculations through Title V, would be compliant with an IA system with that amount of lot area. 337 Nantucket Road, that lot right now it has 5 bedrooms, which exceeds the bedroom count for that particular property, but it is a grandfathered property. What they would do is be willing to reduce that property to a 4-bedroom system. So at the end of the day, the total number of bedrooms they have for the 3 properties that they own would still be utilized. It would just be allocated once that the home was moved from 6 Ames to 339. In doing that, you would bring 337 at 26,825 square feet, by reducing the 1-bedroom, would bring that into compliance with the bedroom credit count for an IA system. So that is the essence of the application. Really, the reason that we would be before you tonight is in order to put the 5 bedrooms on 339 Nantucket Road, we would need relief from the local regulation, the Nantucket regulation regarding the septic wastewater flow limitations, which is the 1 bedroom per 10,000. That was put in place in 2009, when the town water was run to Nantucket. Now, I think I failed to mention, but both 339 and 337, those wells have been abandoned, and those are also now connected to town water. So all 3 of these properties are connected to town water. The 2 that we were talking about have innovative alternative technologies. And at the end of the day, the bedroom count would stay the same, but it would give the applicant the ability to move their existing home from 6 to 339. So albeit 337, I think, is put in there only because they're talking about reducing the bedroom count there, but the application before you is essentially to allow the bedroom credit or a variance from the 1 bedroom per 10,000 under the local Nantucket regulation in order to move the home from 6 to 339. And I'm happy to answer any questions that the board may have.
Staff comments?
Yeah, it's kind of a swap is what's trying to happen from 337 to 339, or a bedroom credit allowed for 339, which is 34,000 square feet. And by Title V, that would be allowed. By local regulation, that is not allowed. I'm unaware of Title V allowing for swaps of nitrogen loading unless it's an nitrogen aggregate loading plan, which needs to be approved by Mass DEP. So I can't see how this could work.
Yes, it's my understanding we need an aggregate plan approved by the state, yes?
If, in this scenario, it's a little tricky because as Paul was pointing out, the lot by Title V standards, 339, which is 34,000 square feet, by Title V standards, is big enough for five bedrooms with an IA system. But by local regulation, we're 1 per 10,000, and the lot was permitted for 4 bedrooms at the time that it was permitted. So that's what the property gets, you know.
Yeah, if I could, through the chair, what John is saying is correct. It's not, it wouldn't be an aggregate, because under the state regulation, this is strictly a local variance because of the 1 bedroom per 10,000. Oddly enough, when you look at it, if I were to look at it as an aggregate plan, and you took 339 and added the 15,000 square feet that 6 Ames is, I'd still be I'm just under, I think it comes to 49,000 in change. But again, that's not necessarily why we're before you. It's the local regulation that we're completely compliant with the state regulation with regard to the bedroom count and the area of the land. I mean, I think the reducing of the 337, I think does, in my sense, make it a little bit more appealing, because we are losing the ability to put 1 extra bedroom on 337. 337 currently is only a 4-bedroom. 337 is a 4-bedroom. 339 is a 2-bedroom, and then 6 Ames is currently a 3-bedroom. So at the end of the day, there would be no ability to expand any further 337. That could be put in with a deed restriction, and this gives them the ability to save that home and put it on a lot that they do currently own. And it would still be compliant. At the end of the day, it doesn't change the amount of bedrooms that they have within this entire area. And again, all the properties are tied to town water at this point.
What if they sell one of these properties?
You can put a deed restriction on you could put a deed restriction on 339, you could put a deed restriction on 337. They're never going to get any more bedrooms than what they have. They can't exceed, they would then be exceeding the state. A deed restriction on these 2 properties is something I'm sure that they're more than willing to do.
I guess I feel that when we're faced with a situation like this, where a house is going to go into the drink, so to speak, we have to change the thinking a little bit on being super duper strict, because we're saving a house that appears, I can't tell how close that is, but it looks like it's close, appears that it's going to be lost. So if we can come up with an innovative way to do that, it seems the right thing to do.
But we're talking about 2 separate lots, right? Why don't they just combine the lots into 1?
Combine 339 and 337?
Yes.
Well, number one, they wouldn't then be able to move the house over.
I know, but like we said, what if they sell one of those lots? What happens to the other lot?
Well, at the end of the day,
it's the same.
if your
mean,
only
you
concern
can't-
if they sell the lots is that someone's going to somehow ask for more bedrooms. They're never going to get any more bedrooms. You're going to deed restrict 337 will never have the ability, there'll be a deed restriction for 4 bedrooms. 339, there'll be a deed restriction for 5. 6 is immaterial because that lot's going to eventually go away.
Yeah, but we can't be letting people swap.
We're not,
Something-
I'd like to say,
situation
don't
like
think of it as a swap. We're essentially asking for a waiver of the 1 per 10,000 under the local regulation. I know it sounds like a swap, but we're not asking for any more bedrooms than this family already has in Nantucket.
Two questions. One is, off of 339, there's that piece that extends down to the harbor. Is that their property, or? 'cause
Yeah, that
it's
is their
not
property,
labeled?
yes. The assessor's map it was drawn.
Okay.
Yeah,
So
that is their property. The
Yeah,
line
it's-
there if you look at the assessors, it doesn't show it going down there, but they own that, going down to the
And is
water.
that considered as part of the square footage?
That's part of the square footage.
Okay.
Yeah.
And second thing, in terms of working, can they reduce one of the bedrooms in one of those two structures to go to, so it's 4?
Sure.
I mean,
There's
just
no
kind
question.
of
But
make it,
again,
you
but
know,
again,
move
at the end of the
6,
day,
and they have an existing house, between one of those two, get rid of a bedroom.
No.
And then it would be 4 bedrooms. There would be nothing to do. That
no,
would be, could they both be compliant?
yeah, I mean, they can, if they move the 3-bedroom to 339, they could either reduce the bedroom in the existing bedroom to 1 and reduce the other one to 3 and have 4 again. But at the end of, to tell them to reduce a bedroom just for the purposes of reducing a bedroom, I mean, they have the bedrooms, they're in Nantucket, they've been in Nantucket for a long time.
Yeah, but it's also a sensitive, I live in Nantucket too, it's a sensitive area, and they're also very close to they're right on the harbor.
Yeah.
With that piece, so I mean, it's not as simple as just like swapping. I mean, that is a sensitive area, and,
Well-
I would like to come up with something that doesn't require pushing limits.
Well, what limit are we pushing if we already have that number of bedrooms within these 3 properties?
And the flood, in 10 years, this is going to be underwater.
No, these are elevated, these lots on this side are on the creek. There's quite a distance in elevation between here
But
and
I've
the
seen,
creek.
and where's Millie's Cottage in relation to these?
If you look at the photo, Millie's Cottage is directly across from 6.
Is where?
Is directly, where we have 6 Ames Avenue, Millie's Cottage is directly across. Across Ames Avenue, just before
Yeah,
the
it's that
bridge.
little block
Yeah.
next to the harbor.
Yeah.
So this is the properties next to Millie's.
Well, there's a
Across
property.
the
in
street.
There's one in between.
Yeah, yeah. This is all the property that was the Morans historically over the Moran. The Morans have sold. I think Paul is the only one left out there now. And quite honestly, there's a plan right now for the town, because the town's looking at that intersection of Nantucket and Ames Road. That's the next thing to go out there, is that intersection. So they're looking at plans to potentially move that section of the road.
Right, the town is looking at changing the intersection there, and
Yeah.
there's some issues about Millie's Cottage, and there's a lot of complexities going on. And what are you asking the planning board tonight about?
Oh, no, it's nothing to do with this one. It's a different one. It's something else. It's just that I have to
go.
cover that one, but I'm okay. And just if I could, I mean, if I came before you tonight and was asking for the waiver for 339 for 5-bedroom for new construction, I understand. There's no way that you would entertain that. I do think it's a unique situation where all the properties are controlled by the same family. It's a way to, keep the status quo, not exceed the state limits. The 1-bedroom per 10,000. Just remember what the 1-bedroom per 10,000 in 2009 was put in when they ran the water to Nantucket, as a way, I think, to appease people, let people know that there wouldn't be this, large growth, because of, once you did put the water in, the 1 per 10,000 issue. So that's really what the issue was. It was not to get more bedrooms than anybody had in Nantucket, and that's what the 1 per 10 came in when they did when the 2009, when that flow limitation came in. It was a direct result of running water to Nantucket, and the concern was that there was going to be an explosion of bedrooms within Nantucket. In this case here, all these properties already existed at that time with the number of bedrooms. They all predated 2009. They had the number of bedrooms on all these properties, prior to the 2009 regulations.
So what is the sense of the board? Because I haven't,
I have a question.
yeah.
Well, 2 questions. One, is this house at Ames easily to be moved because it was on GIS, it says it was built in 1900? And 2, the people that own 6 Ames they've only owned 339 and 337 for a few years,
Yeah,
like
it's been
since
less.
2021.
They've had historically owned, I think, 6 for some time.
Yeah, that's what
And then
it
they
says.
recently purchased, 339 was purchased first, and then within the last 2 years, a year or so, they purchased 337.
So they knew,
They saw the handwriting on the wall.
well, yeah, and you,
They have IA systems as a result, because at the point, they had to upgrade the systems. to
Yeah,
IA.
they upgraded the
When-
system.
when they-
Well,
when
the
the
seller of
purchase.
337 had to upgrade that system. The 339 IA system's been in the ground since 2004 or 2005. That was one of the earlier IA systems put in on the island. That one's been in there quite a while.
Okay.
And as I said, that's a 2-bedroom, 339 is a 2-bedroom house on the 4-bedroom system. 337 is a 5-bedroom system, but only a 4-bedroom house. And there's 3 bedrooms at 6.
can I ask a
And then that
question?
would, the house move that we're talking about, if you were to pan that drawing up in front of the septic system, that's where that house would go on the front, away from the creek. It would be up in that front area right there. That's where this house would move to.
And what's the sense of the board? I'm a little uncomfortable still.
I want to, we've never done this before, have we?
Not that I know
I'm
of.
sorry, I can hear you.
We've never done this before. I'm just, we've never done one of these things before.
Yeah.
Essentially, I think also what you're looking, not, not really a swap, maybe more of a kind of a bargain or deal would be allowing the 339 to go from 4 to 5 bedrooms, and they're trying to, then in turn offer to go down to 4 bedrooms on 337. So
337 is currently how many bedrooms?
I'm sorry, what was that?
337 has how many bedrooms currently?
337?
Yes.
It's a 4-bedroom.
4-bedroom?
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, if I may speak, a sense that I feel a little uncomfortable from the board, because we've not done this before, and I need to think about this.
Okay. Through the chair, there was a similar situation that predated probably most of this board. Malcolm, you might remember, but in fact, this was back when Richard was here, and I think Don was actually involved in it. It was a swap on Nantucket Road, but that was done as like an aggregate plan. I think it was originally before the 2009 restriction may have been in place, but there was a similar case that we could provide some information on that this
Yeah,
was done previously.
I would recommend to the board that we continue this and do a little research. I need to think about it, and
Yeah, that's-
I'd also like to see what we've done before.
Yeah, that's a good
Okay,
idea.
that's fine. I'm more than happy. I appreciate the board taking the time to listen and
Yeah.
give it some thought.
Do we need to make a motion for that?
Go ahead.
Motion to continue until next month.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
All in
Great, thank you so
favor?
much, and thank you for allowing me.
Aye.
All right, we'll think about it over the next, actually, 3 weeks. Yes, because the June meeting is a week earlier than usual.
And Mr. Chair, do you want to continue item number 19 then? So obviously it was both, but I think you need a motion to,
Motion
Oh,
to
yeah,
Continue night.
right, they're the same.
Yes,
continue 339 Nantucket Road, request for nitrogen loading change till
Second.
next month.
all in favor?
Aye.
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 So 337 and 339 Nantucket Road will continue till next meeting, and we'll do a little research if we could figure out what it was we did before.
yeah.
I was here then.
Yeah, there was,
But
there
that was-
there was one different one, which I think was about 2014, which involved moving a house and an aggregate plan, which
Yeah,
DEP
yeah.
approved with composting toilets.
Well, I was here then, but I can't remember.
Yeah, and
I
that
mean,
land is now in the water, so.
Yeah. All
I
right.
feel like there have to have been houses that have been moved due to threat of going into the drink.
Yeah, well-
And I think we must have data on what happened there. And if we could hear some of that, it'd be great.
Yeah, there's the one from, I think it was 2014.
I think there must be others
or something,
out
where,
in Wisconsin, certainly.
Well, yeah, but
Yeah, what?
Yeah. Okay, let's move on. Let's go back to 38 Lovers Lane, nitrogen loading credit. And thank you for waiting, and thank you for letting us change the agenda.
Yeah, not a problem. Dan Malloy for the applicant. I've made similar requests in other meetings, so I understand it. So 38 Lovers Lane, about, I think it was 2 meetings ago, the board granted relief. So first off, what we're asking for is a bedroom credit using the IA system in the Wellhead Protection District. It's 38 Lovers Lane, and you've already looked at the agenda. There's 3 of these on the same property, 3 different lots. We're asking for bedroom credits to go from 2 bedrooms with a conventional system to 3 bedrooms with an IA system. The board, just like I was going to say, I believe 2 meetings ago, approved a similar request on another vacant lot in 38 Lovers Lane. What you're seeing here with the inclusion of the IA system is, I've heard the meeting today, so far this evening, there's been questions about bedrooms, concentrations, what are they doing? And when you add an IA component to it, yes, obviously we're asking for an extra bedroom, but what I'm not hearing discussion about is the IA system is reducing the concentration of what's going in the ground, and it's reducing it tremendously. So you're looking, by adding an IA system, you're looking at a reduction in pollutants in terms of the water quality anywhere from 60 to 80%, above and beyond even what you'd have with 2 bedrooms. So what you're getting here, and what's been discussed in other meetings, even not recently, but when you use an IA system, put aside the question of the number of bedrooms, what's coming out of the system? And what's coming out of the system is a much cleaner water, regardless of the addition of the bedrooms. So I want to just make sure that's clear. So when we talk about this, because I have multiple applications on, it's the same application essentially, but it's the quality of the effluent that matters in this case, not necessarily the quantity of bedrooms.
Thank you. Staff comments?
I don't disagree with that. You know, when the Title V was revised here almost 2 years ago, I think now, what they're calling nitrogen reducing now is best available nitrogen reducing technology, which is to try and get down to 10 milligrams per liter of nitrogen loading. Currently, there's only 2 that are in provisional stage of that. So there's nothing certified for general use by DEP to get to that standard right now. But some of those systems involve wood chips. Actually, we approved one of them actually on the property in Nantucket where the house was moved with the composting toilets. But those are actually showing to be efficient in treating bacteria and viruses as well, not only just reducing nitrogen. But currently, as I said, those technologies there's 2 that are, you know, only allowed a certain amount in the state. But, you know, this is the kind of where we're at now. It's 20,000 square feet and a system that it has enhanced treatment, but, you know, allows for more usage.
Okay. Questions from the board, comments from the board?
I think when, well, one, it's in the Wellhead Protection District, which I think was a big issue with the Surfside Crossing with the ZBA, that concern about contamination and increased pressure on the aquifer. And this is not actually quite that far from there. I mean, this is right by the state forest. So that's a concern. And I also think people know when they buy these lots, how many bedrooms they can have. They know what size it is and how many, so they're maximizing the amount of bedrooms they can get on each lot and then adding the IA so they can get more. And I just feel like we really need to be protecting our island. And I get that the AI systems are better than a conventional system, but it is still more use than what would be allowed if it was a conventional system. It is going to be more wastewater. And I don't think that this counts as, if we denied these, it's not considered manifestly unjust because they could still use the land, but just not have quite as many bedrooms as they, it just, the AI systems, it feels a little bit dirty, like there's a pressure to approve these so that people can get more out of it when you knew when you bought your house what it had. I knew when I bought my house what it was. So I feel like it's like a pressure to approve it to give more. And this is this is still a sensitive area. This is in the Wellhead Protection District. This is our aquifer. This is our water. The water that's in here that I got out there is from our aquifer. And I do think we have to be aware of that and be conscious of what this will mean.
Okay. Any other comments?
Well, I'm in agreement. This is what I've been saying all along, that, this is, if we take it one at a time, it's like, oh, it's just another house, it's just another house. But this is, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, there's like 9 lined up here, all saying the same thing essentially, which is, give me more bedrooms, which means more people, and your nitrogen reducing is nice, but that's not the only thing that's in the water, and more people is more stress. And I guess it's like, 2-bedroom lot is a 2-bedroom lot. It's kind of like, agree with Meredith on that, it's like, that's what it was when you bought it. So, concerned about that one by one, we're putting more increased stress on the island. And I'm just not comfortable with the idea of, that the IA system is a free ticket to do more. So that's where I stand.
Anybody else?
Sorry. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Rick Bodett. I represent the owner of this property who did buy it fairly recently and did know they were buying a 20,000 square foot lot. But a couple of things I do want to mention is that, yeah, they know what they're getting, and they know they can come in here and ask for a variance. Like the hundreds of people that came before them to ask for a variance that was granted. I don't think that's pressure on you to, or is precedent necessarily, but there is a certain expectation by the things that you guys do every month. And all of the engineers that seem to have disappeared, but that come before you every month, they rely on your current policies. And I think, if this is something you want to look at in terms of reducing the amount of people on Nantucket, then, you're the Board of Health. You should look at that and you should have a policy. But until then, that's not what you're looking at. The 2 board members that are talking about this gives them more, it's actually not more. It's less. It's more bedrooms, but it's less contamination above the aquifer, period. And that's why the DEP encourages people to put in IA systems. An IA system, a 3-bedroom IA system, isn't just cleaner than a 3-bedroom conventional system. A 3-bedroom IA system is cleaner than a 2-bedroom conventional system, folks. That's why the DEP approves them for general use. So, you can put more people in there, I guess, right? But those more people is less contamination going into the soil. That's it, period. And that's, I think, why this board has consistently granted these requests. So, again, I know you take them all on a case-by-case basis, and I appreciate that, and I think that's the right thing to do. My client doesn't own all these lots, owns one. But they just want to be treated like everybody else before them was treated. That's all.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Willa Arsenal. I'm speaking on behalf of the Nantucket Land and Water Council tonight. This is the first Board of Health meeting I've gotten to come to in a while because I'm normally at Concom, so I chose a good night. It's an interesting conversation that's happening here. And I think that a lot of good points have been made. For the record, I really like IA systems. I think they do good work, but I would agree with, I'm just on a procedural note, is it Chair Lepre or is there Ms. Lepre and Mr. McKenna have the points that have been raised. I really think you have the right, and it is your responsibility to look at the current needs and evidence that are in front of you. I understand the word precedence is sort of what they're trying to steer you away from at this moment, and I also would try and steer you away from feeling like you're locked in by any sort of precedence. In terms of the conversation of what people are used to getting when they come and stand in front of you and submit these variance requests, I really think you're seeing it tonight. It's on your agenda. You have a lot of variance requests. And so it's definitely important to put in some research and some consideration of quantitative elements, but I don't think that you should feel the need to hold off on making any decisions until you have that data in front of you, until you have those numbers in front of you. What you have in front of you right now is an application for a variance request. It's in a very sensitive area. It's in the Wellhead Protection District. The current policy, 332B, 22B, right? That's what's being asked before you grant a variance request. It's one, manifestly unjust. Is this, is it manifestly unjust? And two, is it going to be is it going to increase environmental protection, right? So I don't know if it's up to you to decide is what you have in front of you meeting both of those standards before you grant a variance request. In my opinion, in the Land and Water Council's opinion, I think that it really is a slippery slope to keep granting variance after variance, increasing these bedrooms. It's all the same points that you've brought up tonight. I'm not going to try and repeat too much. I understand the arguments that are being made here, but it is an important time to consider what's going to happen in these sensitive resource areas. And you're just going to have more tonight. So I won't try to repeat too much more, but that's where I'd like to point you as of right now. Thanks.
Thank you. One more, and then we'll go to the board, and then we'll see where we are.
Sure, sorry. Yeah, just one more thing to add is that, I don't disagree with you guys taking a look at things and determining if, your policy needs to change on these types of things, determining specifically, if these types of variances contaminate the soil more than a conventional system. I think that I feel pretty strongly that they don't. And we can all, again, we can all talk about single source aquifer. We can talk about Surfside Crossing, which by the way is on sewer. So I'm not sure why that has anything to do with a single septic system or what you're looking at today. But I don't, again, I agree with some of what the board members said, which is, you shouldn't change a policy until you know that it is harming the environment, which again, the DEP seems to indicate that it doesn't.
Go ahead, Mary.
I don't think we have a policy saying that that's why they're variances. So it's not a policy, and it's not like a court of law, like there's no precedent set when we approve it because each one is looked at differently. So I was making the comment to Surfside Crossing just because the concern was the pressure on the aquifer theirs was a different reason, but this is this is a sole source aquifer. I have the map right here of the wellhead protection. All of these variance requests from now till the end of the meeting are all in that area, and this is concerning. This is adding a lot of bedrooms in an area that is very sensitive. I mean, I think that if the Land and Water Council took the time to come here to say that they are concerned about this, I think that sort of makes a statement to me. And I don't think it's manifestly unjust because they know what they're getting when they are buying these properties. So it's not, it can still be used, just not to the same extent. And you're also looking at 3 bedrooms plus 3 pools, I believe. So it's a lot of stress on the environment. When you look at the plans, this is not just, oh, I need 1 more bedroom. I don't know how many bathrooms there are. I didn't look at that, but.
Okay, thank you. All right,
Quick
let's
question for
move on.
John. John, are there two-bedroom IA systems? Every time we just say three-bedroom IA, there's such a thing as a two-bedroom, an IA system for two bedrooms.
Yeah, it can be sized any way, yeah.
So you could have a two-bedroom house that is IA and would be fine.
Yeah,
Okay.
yep.
Thank you.
I just got something to say. The thing that's happening here is when a lot of people get to a problem they can't solve, all of a sudden they say IA, okay? And an IA system doesn't have to be the cure-all for everything. I mean, we give people an IA when there's no other way that they can do things. But people have to start to understand that they have to play by the rules. And an IA system doesn't necessarily mean you get extra bedrooms every time we give someone to somebody. And I think we need to tighten the rules up to let people understand, but you just don't walk away with what you need because we gave you an IA system.
All right, I don't disagree with you, I think, but I would like just to have a little firmer, I don't know, word policy or guidelines as we move forward, because this is kind of in the middle of people's anticipation of what we've done in the past, and that's just fair. That's just fairness.
It's not, because they're not precedents. This is not a precedent-setting thing.
I
So
know.
I disagree.
Well, I disagree. I mean, it's not a precedent, but there is a fairness in life as well.
But there also, I mean, if any of the developers and everything are listening, that we have been discussing this now and taking, this kind of pushback for the last batch of months. Every month we talk about this, that, we are concerned about this constant coming in of I can get more if I put an IA system in. And the thing is, it's more people and it is more water and it's, nitrogen reduction is great, but there's a lot of other pollutants that are in waste too. And you can only push a system so far, but we've been doing this approval one by one. And I think the thing is that we have been talking about it at the board. I mean, it is something that is become more of a concern. And I think that's out there.
Well, I mean, the solution, which would create more problems, is to sewer the island.
Well, that's not going to happen.
But that's
not going to happen.
I know. If we want a purely environmental solution, that's the solution. But that would, I'm even going to go there. As far as, it would increase development costs, et cetera, et cetera. So let's stay with it. All right, let's get on one more. We'll take two more comments and then we'll take a vote.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. You're talking about precedent and it's not precedent and this isn't a court of law. I don't know. That may be the case. However, the standard is manifest injustice, and it is, and remember that the standard by which you guys are judged is arbitrary and capricious. It is by definition manifestly unjust to give it to someone a month ago, 2 doors down, and it is by definition arbitrary and capricious to give it to someone 2 doors down and deny it to someone else the next month. I'm sorry, but that's the standard by which you guys always have to
You don't have to go there. Okay, that's unnecessary. All right, one more comment, then we're going to take a vote.
Thanks, I do appreciate your time. I almost would echo a similar sentiment, which is to say you do have a policy. It is that manifestly unjust and environmental protection standard. So that's what you're looking to try and meet as before you provide this variance or approve or deny this variance. What manifestly unjust means is up to you. And so in this case, I would not say it's manifestly unjust to deny them this variance because, as has been stated, they bought this knowing what they were getting into. And again, in terms of environmental protection, because this is a twofold approach that you have to take before these variances are approved, I think that's arguable too. I understand the benefits of an IA system. I do think nitrogen loading is really important to consider, but has been brought up. There are other things to consider when it comes to environmental protection. And again, this is a very sensitive resource area. So, thank you.
Thank you. All right, so it's the pleasure of the board. Do I have a motion, one way or the other?
I'll make a motion to deny.
I'll second.
Any further discussion? We have a motion to deny the variance. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
To deny the variance. The chairman votes no. That's 4-1. The variance is denied. Thirteen, Woodland Drive.
Well, I just want to be clear, so what you just voted on was one application?
So there's two other,
There's multiple applications. so
Yeah.
I
Well-
have to finish.
Yeah,
they're right, they're
we
extremely
should do
similar,
each of them.
so-
So we did,
They're all the same.
Well, but we did.
I'd only like to say one part, and I won't go through the whole thing for each one again, if that's okay.
well, did we, yeah,
We voted on 9, we have 38 Lovers Lane, so technically we're at item 10, 38
You
Lovers
voted on
Lane.
38 Lovers Lane, Lot 1.
Yeah, and then that's
It's
lot
lots
2 and
2
lot
and
3
3.
coming, and they're both, the other two are
well,
very, very similar.
the motion was to deny the variance. We didn't do the motion right. I suggest we clarify what we voted on, because the motion was not correct.
Okay, so a motion to deny 38 Lovers Lane, Lot 1.
Second.
Do I hear a second?
Yes, second to, for lot 1, 38
All in
Lovers Lane.
favor, say aye.
Aye.
Chairman says no. The variance is denied 4-1 for Lot 1. Lot 2, do we have a motion?
Oh, excuse me,
it
Mr.
does.
Chairman, if I could at least present
Yeah.
the
Go ahead.
application very, very, very briefly, because it's the same
Please.
thing you just heard. The only thing I would like to add, just for clarity, and assuming you're hearing this, is by not granting the variance, if you were to vote no on this one as well, what you're effectively doing, the property owner is now no longer obligated to put an IA system. So they're going to now revert back to a conventional system. And by doing so, that vote is now increasing the pollution and the nutrient load into the soil and groundwater system by a much higher magnitude than if the variance was granted. So I want to be clear that by not granting it, you're doing the opposite of what the regulations are trying to do.
I don't disagree with you, sir.
I just want to make that point, that you're not,
Well, are we-
not granting the variance is the opposite of what you should be trying to do.
Are we forcing you to put in a conventional system, or could you put in an IA system for 2 bedrooms?
By not getting the bedroom credits for the IA system, the owner has no obligation to put an IA system in. They'll put in a 2-bedroom conventional, which is what's allowed. That's what you're allowing by denying. So you're effectively saying we're okay with a higher level of pollution by not granting. That's what I want to make clear.
I understand that. I'm not sure the board understands that. They just voted to deny your variance, so he can put in a system that is not as clean.
That's correct.
I thought that at one point you said that there's not systems that are meeting what the standard is. Did I mishear that?
Well, the new best available nitrogen-reducing technologies, which the state has set forward for nitrogen-sensitive zones, that best available nitrogen-reducing technology is based off 10 milligrams per liter of nitrogen, which is not met yet. There's 2.
So the IA systems that would be put in would not meet that 10?
Correct, not now,
Correct.
but yeah, they've always been at 19 milligrams per liter, and a conventional's 38. So it's, the current IAs have always been kind of more or less cutting in half what a conventional system does.
So new
In
construction.
terms of nitrogen loading.
New construction can use conventional systems if they don't win any variances.
I'm sorry?
New construction can use conventional systems if they don't want any variances.
In this zone, correct,
Unless
yeah,
they're
if
in a
it's
certain area.
20,000 square feet,
I know
they're,
Medicaid is
they're,
a little
they're
different.
limited to 1 bedroom per 10,000 square feet, but that they're not required to put in an IA system by any kind of regulation right now, local or state.
Right. So what we've done is we've made it so they will put in a system that is not as clean as an IA system.
So I think we're mixed up, or maybe we're confused. And this comes back to evidence-based, I think, and scientific evidence that I don't know that we have, and maybe we should gather, which is it worse to have another bedroom, which we seem to be saying it is, and not have the most up-to-date system, or is it the other way around? We seem to be very worried that by putting in another bedroom, now understanding that it could be possible to use an old-fashioned system to do that. Is that worse? I mean, I'm not sure where the balance is here, and I think we need to understand what it is from a scientific standpoint before we can make any decisions at all.
Well, we have to make a decision on these
No, we don't.
now.
We could continue this until, again, as we did earlier on something else, until we gathered
Well-
some more information.
I'm not sure when we would get that information, how long it would take to get that information. I mean, we have to deal with what we have now. I think we've discussed about doing some work and studying this for the future. But does that mean we're going to put every variance request on hold for 6 months or a year? I think that's not acceptable. That's not fair to the people on the island.
I don't know. I suspect that we could get this information fairly quickly.
I think the information is an IA system is much superior to a conventional system, period.
If I could weigh
Go ahead,
in,
sir.
What you just said, Mr. Chairman, is exactly correct. You can do more studies if you'd like to, obviously, feel free to do so, but all of the science is already there, it's all existing. The reasons the IA systems exist, the reasons DEP gives the credit to use or encourages the IA system is because it's a better system and produces a cleaner wastewater. If you want people to put these better systems in a cleaner wastewater at a much higher cost, it's not a simple add-on. Economically, it's a much higher cost to put these in, incentivizing people to do so. They get an extra bedroom, they'll put this system in, they get a bedroom, the environment wins because you get a cleaner wastewater. There's talk about people and other environmental impacts, but we're asking for a waiver from the septic system regulation. That's all this waiver is to do with. It has nothing to do with anything else. At the end of the day, all of the science is already there. That's why these systems exist in the first place, is they are a cleaner, better product than a conventional system. And again, not granting.
Even at more bedrooms, even at larger usage.
Substantially better, even at adding more bedrooms, you're talking anywhere from a 60 to 80% cleaner product than you would get with a conventional system that's smaller.
And we're not talking about, in this particular site, 20 bedrooms. Now, as Carrie pointed out, we've approved, I don't know how many extra bedrooms at this board in the last year or so. And that, in a way, bothers me.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I have to deal with the specifics of right now and this particular property.
But this puts 9 bedrooms there where it would have originally had 6. And it is an increased flow of 330 gallons per day, is that correct? Versus the 220 gallons per day of what it would be.
It is an increase of 3 bedrooms.
Right, it's an increase of a bedroom. Like, they could put a 2-bedroom house on this lot, and it would be 220 gallons per day. But instead, if they put a 3-bedroom, then it's 330. And I get that it is cleaner, but it is still more water.
It's more water, but
It's more wastewater.
but
It
it's-
may be cleaner, but this is still our wellhead protection district, and that is why we have a wellhead protection
The
district.
science on all of this, I don't want to go on for hours.
Yeah,
Even
we
though-
have to move on.
The science on this is very clear. It's not the volume we're looking at, it's the quality of the discharge. That is the criteria. That is the concern, that is the measuring point. And when you use an IA system, the quality of that discharge is exponentially better than a conventional system. That's been tested and proven for years and years, regardless of which type of system you're going to use, is a giant increase in benefit to the environment in using these systems. So again, not granting a waiver is telling the person and telling everybody else and the environment, we don't want a better system. We're okay not granting the waiver and putting a conventional system in, because that's what will happen with a with a lower quality discharge, which is the opposite of what you should be trying to do. That's it, thank you.
All right. Shall we continue on with these other votes? You all comfortable continuing on?
Yeah, I'm going to change my vote.
You're going to change your vote? Procedurally, how do we do that?
Well, I don't know. You gotta,
Can we hear what the,
Yes, you can.
Yes. Is that,
can we hear what the Land and Water
Yes,
Council?
that's it. That's the last comment, because we're starting to repeat ourselves and say the same thing over and over again.
I mean, I also will have comments for future applications, though. Is that, you said the last comment, I can wait if that is what you
Yeah,
prefer.
one more comment, because you're starting, when we start saying the same thing over
Oh, I
again.
totally understand. And
It's time to
I'm
move
really
on.
not trying to take up any of your time more than what I have to. I understand the conversations that are being had. I would not argue that the output from an IA system is worse than a conventional system. That's not what I'm trying to argue. What's happening today is that you are being presented with application after application asking for multiple more bedrooms. I would agree when you look at an application like a future application that is on the agenda today at Woodland Drive, when we see a 50% increase of bedrooms, that's where my alarm bells really go off when we think about flush and the amount of water that's being now output from these systems. It is a bit less number-wise of a concern when we have smaller increases of bedrooms. I do think that the content of this output is important to consider, and an IA system will put out cleaner water. Yeah, I'm not trying to argue that. I think when we're having this conversation of how do you approach variances, like you said, Mr. McNabb, you've had a lot of these. So you've approved, one by one, how many, several dozen or however many the number of separate bedrooms you've done that in small increments. And so that's the consideration you have to make as you continue to get these variance requests. It's just going to sort of pile up like this. And so with that, I just would say, I think you still have to look at the regulatory, 332, 22B. I won't repeat the whole thing, but is this unjust? I don't think so. That's your decision. Is this an environmental, is it equally environmentally impacting? Again, I don't think so. So I'll leave you at that. Thank you.
Thank you for your thank everyone for their comments. This is a difficult situation, so.
could I have a clarification of the DEP credit that was just talked about, that if you do put in an IA system, you get a bedroom credit? Am I understanding that correctly?
Yeah, so I can try and give a brief overview of Title V and our local regulations in terms of nitrogen loading. So a lot that's 40,000 square feet, Title V says an acre is 40,000 square feet for purposes. If the property is served by a private well and a septic system, by Title V, it's a nitrogen sensitive area because there's an on-site well there. Title V in that scenario still allows for 6 bedrooms, so 660 gallons of design flow on that with an IA system, enhanced treatment. Same as in the wellhead, and there's, the Cape has many of them. I've spoke with a few agents on the Cape before in the past, and they do allow them in their Zone 2 wellhead areas, their nitrogen sensitive areas. Now, there's also areas that are natural resource areas, such as Nantucket, Hummock Pond, Nantucket Harbor watershed, which are also considered nitrogen sensitive. But those right now by Title V only apply to Cape Cod. So the state, the Cape was really showing signs of water degradation in Mashpee area specifically. And they came to address that with IAs and said everybody needs to install an IA in 5 years. So by our regulation, I mean, the board has a few options as I see this whole scenario. So it's 20,000 square feet, a 2-bedroom conventional can go in there, and that's allowed by Title V. There's nothing that restricts that at all. Nantucket Harbor watershed and Nantucket Harbor watershed require IAs no matter what. Or, things are reviewed on a case-by-case basis as they have been now. Or things just kind of go status quo, I suppose.
Can I ask a question?
Go ahead.
Oh, sorry, do you want to go?
I just want to, so
Just get close to
just
your
because
mic,
it'll
James.
take, an IA will take, just because an IA system will take 3 bedrooms, we don't have to allow 3 bedrooms. Don't,
Yeah, you don't, I mean,
No,
that's
I
correct.
mean,
I mean, they're
if-
entitled to what they'd be entitled to through
Right.
Title V and through local regulation.
right, so, we can say, you can put a Title V in, or you can put an IA system, but we don't give you an extra bedroom. And that's what's been happening. Everyone said, IA, so I get another bedroom, and we've got to stop that.
And it looks like there's an existing septic tank and leaching pit on this plan. Is
Okay, yeah.
that, so is that one not working or not? Or is it just that it's only for 2 bedrooms, so it,
So this property has an existing dwelling on it, we're upgrading it to a 3-bed, well, we're asking to upgrade it from a 2-bedroom to a 3-bedroom.
so did that septic fail?
No, it did not.
Okay. So we have denied Lot 1. And we will move on. Do I have a motion on Lot 2? Do I hear a motion?
I will make a motion to deny the variance because it already has a working septic system on it that is operating for a 2-bedroom dwelling that is already on the lot. So for a deny 38 Lovers Lane, Lot 2.
Do I hear a second?
There's a lot too.
I hear no second.
A
Do I hear it?
second.
Do I hear another? Are you seconding it?
Yeah.
He asked if there was a system already on it, and I said, yes, there's a system already on
Yes.
it. That's a 2-bedroom system.
That's a 2-bedroom.
All in favor of denying the variance for Lot 2, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Chairman's opposed. Anyone else?
Sorry.
3-2, Lot 2 is denied. We have Lovers Lane, Lot 3. Do I hear a motion? Come on, guys.
Sorry, I'm just pulling it up to look at.
Okay. We've had long discussion, we've talked about this for an hour, we ought to be able to make a motion. Just understand what you're doing here.
Yeah.
We're
Is
putting
this
in,
any different?
we're putting
These
in,
are all,
The last one was different than the first one.
I'll make a 30-second presentation. Dan Malloy for the applicant, Lot 3, Lovers Lane. Asking for a variance to go from 2 bedrooms with a conventional system to 3 bedrooms with an IA system, again, resulting in a higher quality discharge than not granting the variance. And I'll end with, this request is the same request which this board approved 2 months ago on an adjoining property in Lot 4.
yes.
So I'll leave it at that. Thank
We've
you.
approved these before, and we're putting oh, go ahead, I've said it all.
So I think Lot 4 was 29,000 square feet, is that correct? And this one is only 20,000 square feet?
Lot 4 was a bigger lot, but was granted a variance for extra bedrooms with an IA system. And the same exact request we're asking for here.
Yes. Do I hear a motion for Lot 3?
A motion to deny.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
All in favor of denying Lot 3's variance, say aye.
Aye.
Any negatives? I'm voting and 2 negatives. So that's denied 3-2. Thank you.
Thank you.
13 Woodland Drive.
Again, Dan Malloy, I'll make this fairly straightforward again. So 13 Woodland Drive, the property has been subdivided into multiple lots. I think everyone's been familiar with town meeting where there's been attempts to get sewer out here, which were denied. So we're now in front of you to ask for variances, the same information you just saw in the previous applications. We have a 20,000 square foot lot. It's allowed a 2-bedroom conventional system by right. Again, conventional system. They're asking for a variance for a bedroom credit for 1 additional bedroom, so 2 bedrooms to 3 bedrooms, utilizing the IA system. And again, the IA system will produce a cleaner, better discharge than a conventional 2-bedroom system. So it is an environmental benefit to approve this variance. And again, strictly speaking about the septic system regulations where this variance is being requested from, it has nothing to do with anything else other than asking for a septic variance for a bedroom credit. Thank you.
Okay, so we're very much where we were before.
It's going from 2 to 3, again, the same?
2-bedroom conventional is allowed by right. They're asking by using an IA system, they'll get 3 bedrooms.
So
one-
each
one
of these
bedroom
lots would have a 3-bedroom unit?
There's 4 applications in front of you that would go with a variance request from 2 bedrooms to 3 bedrooms each.
But again, not all lots are the same size.
There's 6.
Lot 1, 2, 3, and 4 are around 20,000 square feet.
1, 2, 3, and 4 are the same applications
Yeah.
and the same requests. I can get into
Yeah.
5 and 6 when those come.
Are the ones that have a different footprint. There,
So
30,000.
I just have 2 questions. One, have these lots been recorded at the Registry of Deeds?
No, they have not.
And 2, this would change it from 20 bedrooms to 31 bedrooms, right?
If the variance requests on all the lots are approved, yes.
And this is still in the wellhead protection.
That's correct.
Hello. Willa Arsenal speaking on behalf of the Nantucket Land and Water Council again. Same concerns as I've had with the previous applications. With this one, that 50% raise, again, if all variances are approved, 20 to 31, that's a pretty big jump in terms of the amount of bedrooms. I think a 50% jump like that, you really should be considering this as a whole piecemeal. I understand they're separate applications and procedurally that makes sense to me. But again, on the whole, it's a 50% increase in bedrooms. I feel like I am not confident in that 50% increase having an environmental improvement based on an IA system alone. This variance request is for an IA system. Nothing's stopping you from putting IA systems for 20 bedrooms. You really could do that. I think that would be fine with me. Again, I really like IA systems. My main concern when it comes to these Woodland Drive applications is with the increased amount of flow, considering the history of this lot, we're going to see a lot more flow through what is previously potentially contaminated earth. And so that will then enter the aquifer potentially. And so that's really where my environmental concerns come with this specific application. I'm happy to expand more, but I know I've taken a lot of your time tonight, so
No, take it all you want.
thank you. I also really lose my breath whenever there's a microphone in front of me. I really think because of this increase of flow, like I'm saying, which you will have with an increase of bedrooms, it's a 50% increase. This is a lot that has potentially detrimental contaminants within it, and you'll be seeing that flush through quicker. That's just how that works. I don't think that I need to explain the science of water flowing through earth to you too much, but that's, at this point, really my main concern, just beyond what I've already brought up, which is procedurally, as you grant these variances, consider those twofold unjust and environmental impact considerations. Thank you.
Thank you. Questions from the board?
Are we saying this is a more dangerous increase because of its location and what it could potentially do than another place where you were increasing by 1 bedroom per unit?
I think yes, yeah, given the lot, it would be, and given the whole piecemeal of it being not just one, of course, 1 bedroom per lot, yes, but then again, 50%, 31 to 20.
John, do you have an opinion on that? The sort of the danger or the worry of the site?
Well, I mean, it's about almost a stone's throw away from the other ones, I would say. They're all located within the wellhead. So, by Title V, they're even required to install an IA on 20,000 square feet if they want 3 bedrooms. If they want that extra bedroom, they would be required to install an IA. So,
But somebody said something about due to the previous whatever on the site, and I sense that it was things on that site that might not have been.
I might be able to answer that one easier. I
Well,
think.
don't interrupt, please. Go ahead.
I just sense, I sense from what you were saying, that there may have been things on that site that would cause more of a worry.
Yes, this site, I actually honestly would throw it to you if you want to explain the history of this site.
If I may, I'll be brief. The property historically had junk vehicles on it. It wasn't a junk yard. The junk vehicles arrived on the site, majority of them after the Richmond property started. Since that time, the property has been cleaned. All of the vehicles that were junk vehicles are gone. A lot of the topsoil has been removed that had parts and other things in them. Since that time, we've excavated over 20 test pits on the property. I was there myself witnessing all of them. There was no signs of anything there but clean material. So, and again, the septic system has nothing to do with what may have been on the surface because the surface has been removed. And again, the septic system in that discussion is not part of the request for the variance. I understand the question, but there is nothing there that would lend any indication of there's a contamination problem or that the septic is somehow going to enhance or further something that doesn't exist. And in addition to that, the variance request is specifically under the regulation of septic systems, and that's it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, I got somebody online, if that's all right.
We'll take online and then we'll go over here.
Okay, Christie?
Thank you, Christy Ferrantella, for the record. This is my first Board of Health meeting, and I'm doing my best to try to follow the conversation. And I don't quite understand why 38 Lovers was denied, so I just wanted to chip in and kind of give my 2 cents on the proposal for Woodland. I just wanted to express my support for this proposal. These parcels that the applicant has been presenting is truly a real opportunity to add a different type of housing that we're currently lacking on the island. There's been a lot of discussions about smaller, more attainable homes that can serve to work to working individuals and families on the island. Allowing for a 3-bedroom system doesn't necessarily mean you're going to see a larger home, like a 3-bedroom home, which was previously discussed on the other applicants. But this could actually enable a more flexible development where there's 1 and 2-bedroom structures, which are smaller and more in line with our community needs. So I just think this is a really thoughtful approach that aligns with broader housing goals in our community. I've also heard Mr. Maury speak consistently about the importance of year-round year-round occupancy for this parcel. I know that that's something that's been taken off the table after town meeting, but he's truly done as much as he can, coming to several town meetings, special town meetings. He's tried sewer. He's really tried every approach to work with neighbors in figuring out a solution for this. And I don't know if there's anything that the board can do around, if you allow the 3-bedroom expansion, is there some sort of year-round occupancy that we could negotiate after? But I just really, truly feel that Stephen Maury's done a lot of work to try to make this an attainable housing solution for the community, and limiting that is just going to actually make it summer homes. And I think that's a disservice for our community. And I'm just speaking as a citizen, but everybody knows my housing advocacy extends, it's in my bones. So I just wanted to make those comments, and thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Murray.
Thank you, Malcolm. Just very briefly, any discussion about potential contaminants in the soil are unfounded. I mean, there's no record of any contamination on the grounds. And I would ask if staff has any commentary on that. You were there 2 or 3 times. We had members from the local fire department. We had several outside agencies come to look at the property, to look for contaminants. None was found. There were paint cans and things, but they were sealed. There wasn't leaks or any cause for concern that were noted in our Board of Health file or should be relevant here today. So I think that's something important to consider. Another thing to consider is the history of the rest of the neighborhood. The immediately abutting property at 17 Woodland Drive was approved just, 4 years ago for a 4-bedroom system on 20,000 square feet. Nearly every property on the site has a conventional 4-bedroom system or a 3-bedroom IA system, depending on whether there was a need for it to be updated. To limit this property at the very southern end of the wellhead protection zone, where we know flows head in the opposite direction of the wells themselves, seems, it seems to run counter to what it is that you all do. We're going to have more contamination for the sake of fewer bedrooms. And I'm not sure what health purpose that serves. So I'd ask you to consider it in the context of other applications in the immediate area that you have approved. And I would ask for a positive motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Murray. Any other speakers? And then we will go to the board.
I honestly, I just have a clarifying question, maybe to Mr. Moore or Ms. Ferrantella. I'm just going off what I'm seeing in these applications, which is an application for a 3-bedroom variance, which would increase it from 31 to 20. And I think what I understood from Ms. Ferrantella's comments was that they're not necessarily proposing to have 3 bedrooms at each of these lots, or I might have misunderstood that. Is it less bedrooms than that?
I don't know the answer to that.
I don't know who I would ask that to.
I'll answer the question.
His hand is up.
So
No,
the
no, it's
four
not.
applications we're discussing, lots 1, 2, 3, and 4, again, each lot is asking for a waiver to go to 3 bedrooms. That's it.
Right, and I think to that point, my argument has just been 3 bedrooms would give us a 50% increase of flow, and, you know, just a 50% increase. I think that has environmental impacts that should be considered. If they were not asking for 3 bedrooms, if it were staying at 20 bedrooms, I wouldn't be here because it wouldn't be a variance. Again, I have no problem with IA systems. I just think that this is a huge project that's being proposed. I think there's a lot to consider as you go through this application process.
Thank you. So we're asking for nitrogen loading because an IA system is a much superior, more efficient septic system than a conventional system. And we can argue about flows and so forth, but it will reduce the nitrogen and other contaminants to a degree. And I'm not sure we're ready to discuss about the pros and cons of IA systems versus flow versus bedrooms. So in any event, pleasure of the board.
Can I just ask one question?
Please.
How that affects, how the fact that these haven't been recorded with the Registry of Deeds affects all of this? Like, could they be changed, but you still have then could the plan change? Because now, if these were all approved, you'd have a total of 31 bedrooms. So could you move things around because it hasn't been recorded? I don't know the answer to that.
That would depend on what changed, and the degree with what you changed would have to come back before the board. That's the best answer I can give you.
Thank you.
Okay, do I have a motion? My quiet board tonight. No one's making a motion? There's a lot of passion here. Someone has to make a motion. Come on, guy.
Yeah.
Or want me to make a motion? I can make a motion.
Go ahead.
If I don't hear a motion, I would make a motion to approve the variance of lot 1, 2, 3, and 4. We're not talking about 5 and 6?
Those are different animals.
Those are much bigger,
Yeah, it's 12 bedrooms.
7 bedrooms and 12 bedrooms, so.
So I'll make a motion to approve the variance for lot 1, 2, 3, and 4. Do I hear a second?
Yes, second.
And second, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
Aye.
Aye.
Or, yeah, no.
Jim?
I'll say aye.
So you're approving it?
Yes, those 4 lots.
So those 4 lots are approved,
3 to 2.
and you?
No, it was 3 to 2. I said,
He's no.
I was a no.
So
I'm a
it's
no.
3 to
Yeah,
2,
yeah.
those lots are approved.
3 to 2.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
So lot 5 is the 12 bedrooms.
Would you like me to, I can launch right into lot 5, so there's 2 more left.
Yes, let's go on.
Okay, so lot 5 is a larger lot. It's about 80,000 square feet. On that lot, we're asking again for a variance under Title V and under septic regulations. Without a variance, they're allowed an 8-bedroom conventional system. Again, conventional, no treatment. We're asking for a variance to use an IA system, which would generate the bedroom credits to go from 8 bedrooms to 12. Other than that, it's the same discussion as every other application you've just reviewed, the same as the one you just approved. So again, IA for 12 bedrooms with the credits, with the variance, conventionally, 8 bedrooms.
John?
I don't think there's any more I can really add at this point. It's just a bigger scenario, it's.
Same scenarios,
Yeah, it's just
same comments,
Adding-
same
adding.
concerns.
adding more.
So this would,
What is it, like an apartment house? What would have something that would have 8 or 12 bedrooms?
there is not a plan for affordable housing at all on this, as I understand it from the last time Mr. Maury spoke at town meeting. I think that was the original plan, and
Yeah,
now
I
it
listened
is.
to it.
It's not correct. And
Let's one at a time, please. Mr. Murray?
That is wholly incorrect. There are no deed restrictions on the property, but my plan is to work with the Affordable Housing Trust and the Nantucket Education Trust to put community housing here. It requires bedrooms. It does. I mean, what you have before you on this plan is, it's a box. It's not, there's no elevations designed. You know, some other plan will be produced. It's not an apartment building. What I would like to see is separate, small-scale structures. But the first step in that process is determining how many bedrooms the site can support.
Any other comments?
Can we make that part of the motion?
We can make any motion you want, sir.
Can we make that part of the motion?
Well,
Oh, to be,
that's up to us.
Make what part?
yeah, I see. That it would be used by,
Can we hold you to what you just said?
I can't hold the Affordable Housing Trust or the Nantucket Education Trust to anything. So, no, I can't bind them.
Well,
but
we
we
could
could say that it had to be used by the Affordable Housing Trust and the Nantucket Education
Well,
Trust.
we could craft a motion, someone could make a motion that would improve the variance on the condition that the property are used for one of the trusts, and if you can't come to an agreement with those, they would come back to the board, something like that.
Mr. Chairman, I'd ask that you broaden the scope of that because there are other community and housing agencies, maybe to make it
We could make
year-round
it
occupancy or something of that nature.
that the variance would be granted on the condition that the property is used for community housing of some nature for the benefit of the island or something like that.
I would propose year-round and not to exceed the attainable housing price caps. And I think that's a defined term in our code.
Yeah, year-round, what was the last part?
Attainably priced, attainable housing. I think that is a defined term.
I don't think the Affordable Housing Trust has agreed to work on this project. And I also would like to point out that this is a 12-bedroom. We just approved, you all approved, not me, lots 1, 2, 3, and 4, which would be a total of 12 bedrooms. So we're doubling. I mean, I just think I struggle with approving 12 bedrooms on this with there literally not being a plan. Like, literally, we're just going to say, so Mr. Maury could say, well, I'm just going to build a giant house and a guest house, and I just, attainable housing, I just want everyone to know, I don't know how many of you have driven up and down Woodland Drive, but it is a little tiny street off of Skyline that is a private road. Skyline is a private road. So you're approving things to allow a very high density in this very small year-round neighborhood. And attainable housing, I think, is about $1 million right now, 240%, right? AMI is about $1 million, or it was $1 million, which is, when you were looking at police and fire, you can look at the book that's given out at town meeting. That's a lot of money. So 12 bedrooms is a lot of bedrooms to approve for a 1.84 acre lot.
Well, that's a good point.
It's the same, the lots 1, 2,
may I
and
make a
3, and
comment?
4, total 80,000 square feet. And it was approved for 12 bedrooms. This is 80,000 square feet. It is exactly the same thing.
Sorry, Mr. Chair, I have someone's on the line.
Yes, go ahead.
Thank you, Christy Farentella, for the record. And this time I did want to comment on behalf of the Affordable Housing Trust, just to bring light to the comments made by the previous speaker. When the Affordable Housing Trust made a decision not to support the previous plan, it was because of the zoning. That was the concern of the Affordable Housing Trust likes to work within current zoning, and that's what this plan is doing. So I just wanted to make that comment. Second, year-round housing and attainable housing are both defined in our zoning bylaw, and I think having a motion that requests that Mr. Maury, works to find a solution that is in line with both of those zoning definitions is something that I would support. And whether it's the Affordable Housing Trust or another organization that ultimately works with Mr. Maury, again, as my previous comments mentioned, lays out the ability for Mr. Maury to look at building 1 and 2 bedroom homes. Like if say it was a 3-bedroom, which we were discussing before, he could build a 1 and 2 bedroom structure instead of 1 3-bedroom structure. And these provide the price points, which, as Ms. Lepre was saying, is the max sale price right now is 1.2 million. And while that sounds like a lot, our median home price right now is 3.5 million. So you can't afford anything on the market, and these would be attainable. You can't build anything for under $1 million right now. And when Housing Nantucket did a lottery recently for attainable housing up to 240% of AMI, they had almost 15 applicants. So families that are meeting this level and this need. So it's not that while 1.2 sounds expensive, it's still a huge need in our community. So I just wanted to make those comments. And I do think that putting something in about having it be year-round and attainable is something that we could work with Mr. Maury on. Thank you.
Could summarize, that was a little garbled.
Can we allow multiple homes to use the same septic if they are all independently owned by different people that sounds like what is being thrown around is multiple 1, 2, or 3-bedroom homes on one lot that's 1.84 acres. And they would all share one septic system, is my understanding. And I just feel like we've discussed this before of houses.
There's a different rules about sharing.
Yeah.
John, can you enlighten us? We've gone through this before.
Yeah, you can have multiple this would just be, as I see the lot right now, it's only one lot, so it wouldn't be really a shared system. It could be however that might work. Maybe Dan can help me out on that for zoning, but essentially is the way that I see it right now. It's just one lot, so it would be one system. You could have multiple properties, or multiple dwellings on that property, all sharing the same system, but it wouldn't be a shared system in the sense that it's all just one facility, it's one property. So in that regard, it wouldn't be a shared system, but maybe Dan might have more.
John is exactly correct. So this would be no different if it ended up in that scenario, whether it's 1 building, 2 buildings, 3 or 6, whatever the number might end up. If that's where it goes, it's no different than any other application that comes before the board for a septic approval of one type or another. It has a primary dwelling, a second dwelling, maybe a tertiary. It has multiple buildings on a lot that all utilize the same system. So it wouldn't be any different than that.
Would the board be more comfortable if we had a little more details of the plans?
I think it is, yes, because I think this is different because you're talking about, I would assume you're not talking of attainable housing, somebody to be able to buy all of them. So it would be different owners of multiple units all sharing one septic, which I think is very different than what.
Right.
So I would move to continue this until next month. I would make a motion to continue lot 13 Woodland Drive, lot 5 and 6 until next month because lot 6 is a 7-bedroom.
Do you want to continue it, or would you amend your motion to when we have further details of the plans?
Mr. Chairman, I can't proceed to try to design houses until we know how many bedrooms might be approved. I need something some parameters within which I can work to go to the Affordable Housing Trust or the Nantucket Education Trust or any group.
Well, I think you've already been given 4 of those lots, and these ones are significantly larger, and there's talk of
right.
a sort of different scenario, I think.
Mr.
So
Chairman,
we have a motion to continue those 2 lots till next month. Do I hear a second?
I second.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Chairman says aye. We'll talk about those 2 lots next month. The others are approved. 1 through 4, we approved. 5 and 6, we'll talk about next month. Nantucket Road, we talked about. Next is a public hearing for large events at private parties. Let me update you on what's happened there. The public hearing is still on. We haven't closed it. We have been asked to join the select board on June 11th?
That's correct. 11.
11th at their regular meeting to discuss this and other issues. I am very concerned that we will have regulations for short-term rentals, we'll have regulations, but not about regular housing, and parties has now gone to the tourist department. We need to kind of unify our activity, and that's the request. Is that correct?
That's that was my kind of understanding.
That's correct.
That to kind of have one code.
Yes, because Tour and Commerce will look at this potentially, and I've expressed this opinion before. I'm quite concerned about enforcing anything. If you go back to town meeting and remember we talked about those 2 warrants about short-term rentals, there were multiple people stood up with different scenarios. Well, what about this and what about that? It just gets extremely complicated and confusing. And this whole issue needs to be addressed on an island-wide basis, not just by separate departments. And that's what we will try to do on June 11th. So if you could mark your calendars, it would be a joint meeting between the Select Board and the Board of Health.
And what would we hope to have come out of that? Or what would we hope to end up with? Not, I don't mean a decision, but what would our input be? How would it be resolved?
The objective would be to come to a resolution as to how we will deal with regulation of events on the island, island-wide, not just short-term rentals, not just parties, not just large gatherings.
But is not our obligation, our responsibility as a Board of Health to opine, quote unquote, on the health and safety piece?
Yes.
So shouldn't we know what we want to say when we get up there?
Well, health and safety usually becomes quite obvious at various times. Depends on the issue and the time.
Yes,
I don't know.
and ultimately, I mean, these regulations, if modified, would be adopted by the board, but still needed to be approved by the select board. So this is an opportunity for this board to provide their input to the select board so that everybody gets to hear the same conversations around things like enforcement and what applies to health and what does not apply to health, and what other departments can contribute, and how this might work. I've expressed previously that, this would be a very difficult, if not impossible, regulation to enforce, at least from the way that I see it. But at the same time, I want to make sure that the board has their opportunity to really express their views to the select board, and I think this is that opportunity.
I'm sorry to interrupt, but I have to leave.
Okay. So that's the next step in that discussion. All right. Since that was a public hearing, are there any comments from the public on the issue of short-term rental parties?
Looks like there's 20 people, no, I'm sorry.
We could close, do you want to close the public hearing? And I guess. Sure. I mean, we can close the public hearing and then any comments are just ours. So I need a motion to close the public hearing.
I make a motion to close it.
Do I hear a second?
A second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Chairman says aye. So the public hearing is closed. We've had this on for long enough. If the public wanted to say anything, I think they would have been here. We've had 2 comments originally, and it was mostly from caterers. So we have our public comment.
We put all these things into play, and do you really think it's gonna work? You really think you're gonna stop
No.
people from coming, or cars from parking?
Well,
Who is gonna enforce it?
Well, that's a good question, my friend, and that's why I was enthusiastically for this at the beginning. It's just another, the island is getting crazy with regulations now we can't enforce. I mean, we've changed our whole approach to regulations for summer camps. I was at a meeting recently where some of the nonprofits are upset that for them to have their events are getting more and more complicated and more regulations. We can't enforce what we have, and we create work for staff, and then the staff complains, and it's something we have to address. And the regulations we propose, listen, it said, that we're going to limit the parties by the number of approved spaces, but how are we going to enforce that? Who's going to count? Rocky's going to go into all these places and count heads. His staff is going to spend months taking applications. He's going to go out and tow cars. I mean, it's nuts. I'm sorry.
Some substance, they get too many people, your grandkids have to get out.
And do we apply it? I happen to have a short-term rental, and I have a little party for my daughter's wedding. Do I have to apply for that? We have to, before we get down the path, we have to really understand what we can really do
And
from
also
a whole island perspective.
And also identify what is the issue we're really trying to address. I mean, is it everything? Is it?
That's it. I mean, I think
Everything might be a little much.
But I think that's a conversation we need to have, that we haven't had, and here we're gonna be right up in front of the select board, trying to figure out what we wanna say, acting like a bunch of
We
idiots.
should say the select board, it's not our job.
I think well, see, that also goes to, and actually I brought this up because I suggested that we talk about whether the health department should be the one responsible for short-term rentals. And that's also going to be on the issue then. So if we address that issue, we can address the issue of who's going to police the short-term rentals. I'm sorry, we don't have the capacity in the health department to do it. And it's detracting from what they should be doing, in my opinion. So that's really the issue. So we should go there. I'm going to go there, and again, for the 100th time, and I'm going to suggest that we start the process to change the regulation that says that the health department, which is in whatever article, whatever it is. And that would probably have to go to town meeting and et cetera, and I would like the select board to support that. And if the select board doesn't support it, I would put in my own citizens warrant to do it. Anyway.
I mean, do we really have the right to tell someone how many people?
No, we don't. Well, what we do have the right, if the street is full of cars inappropriately, the police should come and ticket them. Okay. There's noise regulations, and those themselves are difficult to enforce because the way they're written, it has to be a certain decibel recorded from a certain place, which goes, again, to show you how crazy it is to try to enforce anything. And this is the issue we need to talk to. Yes.
And just say, you know, if it's a housing complaint, we would go regardless of whether or not it was a short-term rental or any other type of home. It's a housing complaint, we'd go. So there's nothing different about how we would respond.
If there's a complaint about anything, health, safety, he would be involved. If
At
it's,
10 o'clock, 11 o'clock at night?
no, that's a police issue. If it's noise and parking, that's a police issue. It's not Rocky's issue. So that's what we're going to say at the select board. That we appreciate the difficulty of, we just appreciate the difficulty of managing things, and we're not sure it's our job.
We have better control than other people. That's why we got it.
What
Because
control do
nobody else has any control at all.
what control do we have?
We have, no,
I'm sorry, I would like to manage this. After all this time, I haven't figured out how to do it in an efficient way. It doesn't burden the staff, burden the people, or tell people how to live their lives. Okay. What's next?
Andrew, I think, environmental contamination.
Andrew's on the line for the environmental contamination update.
For the minutes, what time did Meredith leave?
oh, heavens.
I think it was
10 minutes ago,
6:24.
6:20.
She left before this item, so the minutes should,
Yeah,
6:24.
you got, yeah, okay.
John, could you please share my slides?
Sure, yeah. I'm trying to get into slideshow mode first, but here. Okay. Okay, and then.
And then just zoom in slightly.
Okay. Guess that didn't work. Oh,
Oh, that looks good.
all right.
All right. Good evening, everyone. I'm Andrew Shapiro, Environmental Contamination Administrator with the Health Department. For those who don't know, I'll be giving an update on PFAS on the island. John, next slide, please. Got a handful of things to talk through tonight. First, I'll be giving an update on available data in groundwater and drinking water. I will be running through some PFAS well sampling fact sheet edits. I will talk about a handful of other contracts, specifically with TRC under this additional data analysis section. I will be highlighting some of our communication efforts. I will be talking about a new contract with the Eastern Research Group, and I will be going over some tips for household water filter disposal that we were asked to add to the agenda. John, next slide, please. So first, I have some very important news to share, and that's that we got a detection above the imminent hazard threshold. near the intersection of Hummock Pond and Burnt Swamp. This was identified by Mass DEP's source discovery investigation when they were on the island on April 9th. Extremely concerning concentration to see in drinking water. In addition to that, we got, let's see, one more detect above the 20 nanogram per liter state standard on Nobska Way. We got 2 additional detections below that state standard, but detections nonetheless, and we got a non-detect from Mass DEP's efforts. In addition to that, we have 22 new samples from the voluntary and private well regulation sampling. Included in there are, again, 2 detections above the 20 nanogram per liter threshold. One of them on Old South Road near the airport, and another on Surfside near Maya Comet. In addition to that, we have more detections below the state standard, and we have 13 non-detects. John, next slide, please. So what is the town doing about these detections? For the imminent hazard detection, I was able to get on the phone with Mass DEP within about 2 hours to talk about how we can help. Mass DEP's policy is that they follow up with abutters within 500 feet and conduct step-out samples, but they let us know that they sometimes do have difficulty reaching out to those abutters, as well as mobilizing and actually conducting that sampling. So I put about 66 abutters notifications in the mail within 24 hours of finding out about this detection to all abutters within 500 feet, encouraging them to reach out to Mass DEP to schedule sampling, also letting them know that sampling kits are available for purchase at the health department, given that Mass DEP might be a little bit slow in their response. I spoke with Mass DEP today, actually, and they let me know that they still have not scheduled a sampling date. They're still working on setting up access agreements and scheduling their trip to the island. So if anyone is in this area and received a letter from me, please reach out to Mass DEP, and also please feel free to reach out to me, and I'm happy to put you in touch with Mass DEP or talk you through any actions you might take. I also spoke with the Inky about this new imminent hazard detection. And the very small good news is that town water is available for this resident. We had a number of detections over the 20 nanogram per liter state standard, so I've reached out to the water company about all of these. Unfortunately, water is not available for all of these residents, but I have reached out to the residents to let them know that I'm available for assistance. I also forwarded the detection near the airport to Mass DEP for their consideration. And as is our policy, I reached out to everyone who got a detect of PFAS just to offer assistance if they want to talk about health effects or filtration options. And that also included everyone who got a non-detect in their sampling, which is good news. But, you know, if people have questions, I'm happy to help. So I've reached out to all of the people who are represented by the data on this slide. John, next slide, please. We can run through this pretty quickly, but here is a data update. This shows all of those most recent samples tabulated here. One interesting finding, our frequencies of detections and of exceedances of the state standard actually didn't change that much, even though we did have some very concerning new detections. And that's just to say that Mass DEP's investigation is still going on. We are still identifying new places where the PFAS standard is exceeded and where PFAS are detected. And we're probably going to continue to find that, unfortunately, which really just stresses the importance of getting the word out about widespread PFAS contamination on the island and getting your well tested. John, next slide, please. This is just a histogram showing that data. We can skip.
Oh, no.
This is very zoomed in.
Sorry, I'm gonna have to try and
No. Yeah.
All right, I'm gonna have to go to this.
No, that
view.
looks good.
Okay.
So here is our updated map. You can see buffer number 2. It's a purple color, which represents the imminent hazard threshold. So that's the new detection. You can see that there is a new detection in buffer 6 that is on the edge of the airport. And the buffer for buffer number 4, kind of the mid-island area, also increased a little bit. John, next slide, please.
All right, now I gotta go back.
Yeah, it's zoomed out a little bit now.
Putting me to the test here, Andrew.
Yeah, all of the technical difficulties.
Is this where we were?
Go back one slide, please. So last month, we had some really good discussion about the private well fact sheet that we had put together. I neglected to mention that that had been approved by Mass DEP on April 2nd, ahead of the Board of Health meeting last week. But I took a look at it and realized that we had not mentioned the EPA MCL goals, which are health-based standards. So there was definitely room for improvement on that fact sheet. And so we ran this updated text by Mass DEP. And actually, since we submitted this slide for the packet, Mass DEP actually did approve this language. And so we are continuing to recommend treatment for improved water quality, especially if the water seeds an MCL goal, an MCLG. And we also just have a description of the MCL goals, highlighting that that goal is 0 for PFOA and PFOS. And then we also have some language just describing the MCL goals in EPA's own words. John, next slide, please. So this is the same fact sheet that was shared last time.
Sorry.
But if you look at path 1, step 4, that's where we have added language encouraging people to compare their results to the EPA MCL goals. And if you look at the next page.
Okay, I might switch out of that one.
Footnote 1 is where we are mentioning that the MCL goals for PFOA and PFOS are 0. Also, as a side note, this is somewhat breaking news on the federal level and was not available at the time I put this packet together. So EPA announced, I think it was yesterday, that they are reconsidering regulating the 4 compounds included in the federal MCL hazard index calculation. As a reminder, those PFAS are Gen X, PFBS, PFNA, and PFHXS. So, seeing that reconsideration, it's just a reminder that drinking water standards are not always based on health criteria. But whether EPA chooses to regulate these compounds, that doesn't change the underlying science, the epidemiology, the toxicology, the risk-based screening values that have been developed that show that these compounds are toxic at low concentrations. And so because of that, that's why I reach out to everyone who gets a detect of PFAS in their private well water, and I'll continue to be doing that. John, next slide, please. This slide is related to our ongoing TRC contracts. There's not much of an update here. The fingerprinting is ongoing. We still haven't received a report from TRC, but there is a public records request ongoing related to that. This needs assessment, I think I introduced last month. It's related to data management services, and we had our kickoff call, but no big updates there. Next slide, please. So because of widespread contamination of PFAS and the importance of testing people's wells, we are trying to ramp up our communication efforts. So we revived our health department Twitter, and we've already put out a number of tweets related to PFAS, highlighting the importance of testing your well. emphasizing that there's no safe level of exposure to PFOA and PFOS in drinking water. I interviewed with the INCI again to achieve the goal of stressing the importance of testing your well. There's no article about that out, but hopefully there will be soon. We also sent out a PFAS newsletter, again highlighting the importance of testing your private well. If you're interested, please follow us on Twitter and please sign up for our PFAS newsletter. Hope to have more tips on reducing your exposure to PFAS coming up soon. And last on the communication front, I'll be presenting at the NAREB meeting in 2 weeks. Next slide, please. So we have a new contract with Eastern Research Group, ERG. This is to do some surface water sampling as well as some communication support. So I'll talk a little bit about each of these tasks on the next slides. So we are interested in looking at surface water, PFAS in surface water, specifically at public bathing beaches. This is motivated by a few things. First, contaminated groundwater discharges into the ocean and into various surface water bodies around the island. And Mass DPH actually has surface water action levels established for public bathing beaches equal to 20 nanograms per liter. So we've contracted Eastern Research Group to develop a sampling and analysis plan, to develop decision-making protocols based on the PFAS results that we get. And there will be 2 Board of Health updates on each of these sampling events. We are also proposing to have a virtual presentation summarizing the results, a fact sheet, and a final report. So I'll be sharing updates on this new sampling effort coming up soon. I hope this is the first of many community exposure assessments that we do. So we're certainly not moving away from groundwater and drinking water. That is certainly a exposure pathway of concern, but this is just another thing that we can do to protect public health on the island. Next slide, please, John. Also on that contract with Eastern Research Group, we're planning to develop 4 additional fact sheets, develop more web content, and we'll be hosting 2 in-person community events featuring academic expert speakers. I'm particularly excited about that. I think it'll be a good opportunity to get some really smart experts on the island to talk to us about PFAS. And just a couple of ideas that I have on what we might focus some of our communications efforts, things that we've talked about in the past, filtration, health effects, how to talk to your doctor, how to reduce your exposure. John, next slide, please. We had also got a request to go over how to handle used household water filters. So I ran this by the solid waste manager over at the landfill. Used water filters are not considered hazardous waste according to RECRA. And so the recommendation for point of use treatment is that they can be placed in the non-recyclable, non-compostable waste stream, the Nantucket waste stream. I would also recommend checking if your manufacturer of your filter has a take-back program. A little bit of Googling suggests that a lot of manufacturers do have this type of program. But if you have a point of entry treatment system, you do need to coordinate that with a professional for replacement and disposal. And the Nantucket waste at the landfill is disposed of in a RECRA Subtitle D lined landfill with leachate collection. One of the nuances that often comes up at the landfill is that the old landfill cells are not lined, but the current active cells at the landfill are lined with leachate collection, of course. And last slide is just a copy of the waste stream infographic that the landfill has on their website. So sorry, I kind of sped through that just because it's been a long meeting, but I am happy to take any questions.
Questions? Very nice again.
I just had one thought, and it came fairly early in his presentation. And that was for those people who have greater than 20, the Mass DEP limit, we're not providing water?
So I reach out for that as a possibility. Unfortunately, it's not always possible. Just as one example, we had someone who really wanted to get hooked up to town water. We really also wanted to get them hooked up, and their neighbor didn't grant them an easement. So it can be challenging to get people connected to water if they're in that 20 part per trillion threshold. So what I do is I talk to them and reach out and let them know filtration options. And if town water is not available, filtration is going to be the way to go.
We can't provide bottled water, large, the way a lot of people do in areas where they have, those great big things that they have.
Yeah, so Mass DEP provides bottled water as a temporary solution for people who have 90 parts per trillion or more. But unfortunately, we don't provide water to people who have detects over that threshold. The private well owners are ultimately responsible for ensuring the quality of their water, but we reach out to people to let them know filtration options and talk them through options to help them out.
Can I say thank you to Andrew?
Yeah,
appreciate.
yeah, happy.
Good information, and I do appreciate your kind of trying to stay up and with some of our concerns as we've expressed. So thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Yep. If any questions come up, feel free to reach out. I'm always available and can get back pretty quickly.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
And sorry, Mr. Chair. Andrew, these slides are obviously in our packet.
They are.
Available online,
Yeah.
and some of that information will also be posted on the town website.
Yes.
Okay. Director's report.
Is Jericho on?
Jericho is on.
He is on. So Jericho's going to give a quick update on behavioral health initiatives.
Great.
Hello, everyone. Switching gears from environmental health, I'll take a couple of seconds to update on sort of the broader behavioral health initiatives in play with the Department of Health and Human Services. I'm going to take a brief step back, and I'm going to be really respectful of your time. Most of the current work on the behavioral health on Nantucket started with the GAPS study, which started over 2020 to 2021. A consultancy called GPS Incorporated did a kind of broad analysis of the available and unavailable resources on Nantucket for behavioral health, settled on a shared terminology for the gaps that we had, and then had it as a recommendation for its final output, the formation of a freestanding 501c that can be dedicated specifically to collaboration between agencies, finding available resources that were not on Nantucket as of yet, and then just sort of acting as a clearinghouse for all of the behavioral health related agencies on the island. And that was founded, I believe, last year, and it's called Community Solutions for Behavioral Health. That is sort of the vehicle that is doing some of the coordinating across all of the different behavioral health efforts on the island. It is a collective organization with representatives from Nantucket Cottage Hospital, from the town, from Fairwinds, from NAMI, and a variety of other organizations, and regularly includes the viewpoints of some independent therapists, as well as involved members of the community. So of the major swings, I suppose you'd call, for the community solution to behavioral health, they focused on four major components right now, with a lot of background work in terms of getting people speaking speaking in the same language, looking at the same data, finding the same resources, and there are sort of four major components active right now. The first is youth homelessness. There was a couple of incidents indicating that there were some youth homelessness issues on Nantucket. The Community Solutions for Behavioral Health managed to find the Barnstable County Homelessness Prevention Council, which then connected us to the Department of Mental Health, which managed to integrate a youth homelessness diversion program and a host family program, which has been embedded within Our House, which is a youth-focused behavioral health organization on Nantucket. I think we're all familiar with Our House. We're really happy to have gotten some additional grant funding to go help support their work in both handling emergency homelessness issues around youth and then sort of longer to medium term host families. There's more information on that available at the CSBH website, as well as the Health and Human Service webpage. Next, and a kind of broader behavioral health element, we were working in partnership with the Nantucket Cottage Hospital, as well as Community Fund for Nantucket, which I neglected to mention is part of CSBH. The Community Fund for Nantucket, as well as everyone from the various travel funds for health and behavioral health related elements. Right now, I'm getting a collective health and behavioral health related transportation relief system in place so that people can make it to and from appointments, be they health or behavioral health, to and from Nantucket while addressing the burden of traveling that extra step that living on an island requires. Kind of the major thing that we have going on is QPR, which you hopefully have heard me talk about before. QPR is question, persuade, and refer. It's a behavioral health response and resource educational program. I believe Carrie might actually have gone through the trainer training for that. We had been offering QPR to anyone we could get into the training facilities. We were offering on a monthly basis. At the end of last year, we were fortunate enough to get a very large cadre of teachers or trainers trained up to be certified to give this QPR education, and we're now in the process of taking that to initially targeted training at various town departments. Once we have the kind of tires kicked on that, we're going to be going directly to a variety of employers and working in concert with the Chamber of Commerce to kind of provide access to this training for anyone who wants it, but also clustering in sort of the employers that have either a large number of seasonal workers or that deal with kind of
Like you froze up there.
Yeah.
then
lost 'em.
working through the fall. Am I coming through?
Oh, you're back.
Okay. It has just informed me my internet connection is unstable. I'm going to turn off my video because that can save on bandwidth. If I'm still coming through, I'll turn it back on. Apologies for that. Hopefully this should be a little better.
Go ahead, Jericho.
Okay. So we're going to be continuing to expand the QPR training. We're hopefully going to have that integrated into a variety of like cultural events. We've been in discussions with culture and tourism to do some sort of seasonal events that we can kind of focus primarily on fun and games, but also have behavioral health resources available and education available as well. Finally, and this has been primarily a spearheaded by Community Solutions for Behavioral Health, we've drastically expanded the availability of Narcan trainings. And I believe I was able to report through the police department that we actually had our first full year with no overdose deaths on Nantucket in quite some time. We're hopefully going to be expanding those trainings out, as well as supplementing implementing the access of Narcan. We've partnered with a variety of churches, with with the Chamber of Commerce again. We're going directly to any public-facing organizations that have any desire whatsoever to learn more about Narcan and its effect on reducing opioid deaths. Currently, we're planning on expanding both the QPR. We're going to be adding additional people who are trained in the QPR response. Likewise, Narcan training is hopefully expanding. We should be getting our next delivery from the state on that in the next few days. I believe it'll be dropped off tomorrow. We're partnering with the Athenaeum for a lot of locations for this event. So the library has been extremely helpful in terms of providing us with a space and giving us input from a variety of people that we wouldn't normally get input from. Ongoing with Fairwinds and State DM, the Department of Mental Health, we're working on a suicide postvention response plan. Postvention reps into prevention. It's all really one circular continuum. We're building that out in partnership with the State Department of Mental Health. So that is a process that's underway. There's been a couple of wellness initiatives. We've seen an uptick in people accessing wellness, such as breath work, mindfulness, meditation, as there has been increasing evidence supporting its efficacy in behavioral health responses. We were very lucky to sponsor several health and wellness programs over the course of winter break for returning college students or returning any students, as well as offering those to teachers as part of the teacher wellness program. There's a couple of interesting projects I'm hoping to see grant submissions from building off of this. And there's been a lot of really interesting work in this kind of developing element. Finally, we're working on the illusion, I alluded to it earlier, but pro-social activity. One of the major gaps identified in that gap study was a lack of safe and healthy activities on Nantucket. So in partnership with Culture and Tourism, with Fairwinds, we're working on healthy living initiatives. We're looking to improve the availability and awareness around non-alcoholic beverages, and a lot of sort of the just offering alternatives to potentially unhealthy decisions. And then finally, sorry, I already said finally, and I think my connection's better now. And then we have what is called accares.net. Accares.net is the network of care resource directory. It is as close to an authoritative list of every resource that is health and human services based. It includes state, federal, and island-based resources. It has been greatly expanded in the last couple of months, with a couple of additional reach outs for directory for agencies to participate and update their information and access and communication, comms directions. And then it actually entered the natural language search query system. I know that doesn't sound super interesting to anyone but me, but basically there has been some developments in natural language processing that allows for basically human type interactions with the search directory, where you outline a problem and then the natural language search system generates from the database a solid selection of all of the different resources that apply. There are some nerdy bits about how Health and Human Services on the federal level has split up the resources along rather arcane taxonomies. This basically means that you can ask the CARES system more or less, I need this, and it will find everything that is applicable within your area. You don't need to know the special behavioral health terminology. And then hopefully, and the neatest part about this is that this is a modular code piece, essentially, that can be put on any web page or any, can be shared everywhere. So we should be able to connect this to anyone who needs resources would have a search bar. They can type it in, and that should be able to connect them to the best resources we have, as well as provide kind of hints at directly connecting. Like it'll offer you contact information. It follows along with sort of it's based on a generative AI platform. So it is really tightly constrained. It can only answer with what is in the database, and it kind of holds your hand to get from one resource to the other. I'm really excited to see how this goes. And I'm not typically an AI booster. That's basically the 2 cents there. Obviously happy to answer any questions that anyone may have.
Thanks, Jericho. And I'll defer any additional updates until the June 12th meeting. It's late, and unless you have any questions for me.
Yes, just remind us all that our meeting is a week earlier next month.
Yes, and it's going to be in the trailer. I couldn't get this room for that date, sorry.
In the trailer,
Yep.
and.
So June 12th is our meeting,
Yes, and
Yes.
the 11th. is
trailer, and the 11th is at,
Select board.
Select board.
and that's 5, what time?
It's
It's at
5:30.
I will ask to be on the agenda early. Sometimes they go late. This is 3 hours, so we need to deal with bedrooms, and do we need, where can we get somebody to tell us scientifically the value of alternate system versus the flow and the number of bedrooms?
Like we had talked to Barnstable County, obviously, recently about potentially presenting to this board. They obviously have some experience with this, having had the concerns around the water quality there, particularly in the bay. So that's something that we can do, and like I said, they have significant amount of expertise with it.
I think we should do it as soon as possible. Can we do it?
We need to get them their approval and their availability, but we'll set it up as quick as we can.
Yeah, we can make a public hearing, or we could do when could we do this? July?
I can talk to them about their schedule. We can shoot for that if
Yeah.
that's okay. All right. So John and I will speak to them
Yes.
about their availability.
And if I'm still on the board in July.
We were also going to find out, remember, if we could get some information on other houses that had to be moved off of their property due to the fact that they were about to fall into the sea, or something else was going to happen. What became of them in terms of extra bedrooms allowed and all of that kind of thing?
Yeah.
We'll see what we can find.
I'm sure you can,
If you could work on that, my friend,
just a little.
to, and then I almost feel like putting a moratorium on these requests.
Oh, I agree.
until
I
we-
agree.
Until
I
we
agree.
have this meeting.
I almost think we should, because some of the complaints that we do it for everybody, so why can't they, yeah.
Well, I think it's one of those, it's out there as a high concern, and so you try to get in before something changes. You want to be under the old regulations. So, yeah, if there was a way to slow it down or have a moratorium, but I think it would have to be for a reasonable period of time. We couldn't make it for, we couldn't make it open-ended.
Well, and it can't be for the people whose systems are really failing. I don't think it can be for that. I think it has to be for people who are looking for this
Or for new
sort of
constru-
bonus thing.
Or for new construction.
Well,
That's really the one that, you buy a lot, it's 2-bedroom, it tells you, but now you handle to get more, but then they say, well, if we don't put it in, we're gonna put a crappy septic system in. And again, I think the Barnstable stuff, the material that was in the packet that some of us got, we actually maybe some ideas as to how to approach this in a much more, the whole town, with the town support to encourage the use of IA systems. So, because again, sewers
I'm
aren't.
just thinking procedurally, if for something like a moratorium, is that the chairman's discretion, or that we have to vote the board, and then we'd have to put it as an agenda item?
Those are rules I don't know.
Yeah, I don't
Maybe
know the
the
answer to that
health
question.
director could decree a moratorium until
I-
we gather data.
Yeah, I'd have to ask and see how that would, what the procedure would be to do something like that. I mean, obviously, there's people that are, as you mentioned, that are in situations where they have failed septics or they have
Yeah,
other issues that are.
If it's an absolute necessity, we'd of course hear it, but if it's,
So you're talking about like building additions and new construction, that sort of thing.
because we do need a policy or a guideline if we're gonna change.
Well, we're gonna get a legal challenge if we don't, because that was about to happen.
We're gonna get one.
It was happening sort of here.
You're gonna get one on
Yeah.
Lover's Lane, I suspect.
Yeah. Yeah.
Especially because we approved some on Woodlands.
And there are many other,
Well, that's why.
Yeah, yeah.
there are lots of other things that you get.
No, we can't talk legal.
I'm not talking legal. I'm talking, there are many other things that in the course of owning a home, that you get a credit for something if you do something else. And so this is not a unique kind of a thing, I don't think.
Well, I think,
Certainly if you own an old house, that happens all the time. And, if you do a certain procedure, then you'll get something back.
Tax break.
well, we don't have this moratorium on the agenda, so.
I think so.
I would put it on June's agenda.
And we can research exactly what would be the process to do it.
I'll find out the process.
Okay.
I think we can just vote on it, put it on the agenda. We can't discuss it today, we can't vote on it today because it's not on the agenda. And that would be a violation.
Right.
So we're not discussing it till then, so that would be on the agenda.
Okay.
And we'll shoot for July to have a discussion. And that way it's my concern is not so much, I hate the word precedence, it's more fairness. And I think we have to be fair. And so we put it on the agenda, we let everyone know, we're not doing this anymore until we have a public hearing on the subject. We will take emergency situations. That we'll vote on.
Make a motion to adjourn?
Do I hear a second?
Definitely.
All in favor?
Stand up. Okay.
Battery ran out. My battery ran out.
Oh, yeah.